And we are live. Welcome all, welcome everyone to this very special Roundtable on the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We are doing Bock Saga today. I have done 3 shows with Dustin already, but there is so much more to be said and so much seemingly controversial stuff within the Bock Saga that people want to know, but that other people don't want to discuss. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get some people together, do a roundtable, and see where we end up, see what ends up happening. So we have a good crowd together already. Andy from Deepshare will be joining us a little later. He has got his times mixed up, but I mean, we have 7 people in here already with at least, I want to say, like 3 different time zones. So, yeah, that'll happen. Um, if anyone wants to start with just kind of introducing themselves, because there are a lot of faces here that I haven't seen before, and people that I do recognize as a Bock Saga enthusiast or a Bockonauts, if you will. Um, I guess let's start with the guy who kicked it all off, Paranoid American. For everyone who doesn't know you yet, and I don't really see how. Introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, the quick is just that I've been self-publishing comic books exclusively for the last 10 plus years about conspiracy theories and occult topics. I like all this really deep research, stuff like Bock Saga, and I find that I enjoy bringing these stories, like simplified, silly versions of them, into the comic medium to get a little bit more appeal and just have them exposed to completely different markets. So I got like an MK Ultra comic, and I've got a comic on the Federal Reserve, and one on how Kubrick directed the moon landings. Just any run-of-the-mill conspiracy theory, I try to be the guy that makes the comic book out of it. And I got kind of initiated into Bock Saga. I heard about it maybe like a year or two ago, but it was all about astrology and alphabets and letters, and it felt a little over my head. I don't know more than just the American language. I only speak American. So when I finally got together and I read Carl Borgen's novel, or I guess his book, that was, I believe, sanctioned by Eeyore Bach, I read that in its entirety, maybe 3 or 4 times in a row earlier this year, recorded a 6-hour podcast with my friend Juan from Occult Book Club. And that was what left me with a bunch of questions. And my main sort of curiosity here is that I've had Bock Saga explained to me as a non-supernatural explanation, like an alternative to all the supernatural versions. But I just have like a short list of claims made in the Bock Saga that feels supernatural to me that I guess I'm curious about discussing. So that's where I'm at, and you can find me at paranoidamerican.com if you're looking for more of the stuff that I do.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for joining, and thanks for asking those questions. I've I know the Bock Saga is one of those stories that brings up a lot of questions. So thank you for being here. I mean, Josh, if I mean, come on, like if people don't know you yet, you know, at least my subscribers, then I don't know what they're doing. But for anyone who doesn't, introduce yourself, bro.
Um, I'm an author. I am a pagan preacher. If that's actually a thing, I like to think I'm a real thing, but whatever. Um, and I'm a member of the Greyhorn Pagans tribe. Dad, husband, and another paranoid American. What can I say? You can find my book pretty much anywhere. Just Google J. Ash Odinson, and you'll find my books on Books a Million, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. There's a few of them out there.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, man. Let's see. On to a name and a face that I don't know yet. Rob Renegades. Love the moniker, by the way.
I thought you might be referring to me. Can everyone hear my mic?
We can hear you, man. All good.
Yeah, good. Right. Okay, my name is Rob. I'm from Shropshire in the UK. I'm a researcher and writer. Not paid, obviously. That would be nice. I don't know what else to say. I used to be a carpenter. I've done a bit of graphic design. I've always been fascinated by the old world. I've been going out sort of boots on the ground, researching, looking at ancient sites long before I discovered anything to do with Bock Saga. And just quickly on that, even before I picked up the book and realised that there was a word for it, I'd been noticing clipels in the countryside in Wales with that same shape.
All right. So you noticed and you thought it was a good idea to look into it. A bunch of noticers here. That's good. Let's see. Thor, you've been on one roundtable, just a random roundtable before, but good to see you, man. Introduce yourself.
Hey, what's happening? Thor here, the librarian, coming from California, interested in the Bock Saga, found it about 4 years and some months ago from Jim Chesner, Higher Side Chat interview, and have been researching it and involved in the Bock Saga Telegram group, and that's how I got involved in finding your podcast. And just popped in to say what's up because it's a topic that I'm very much so interested in, and great to be here with y'all. Thank you.
It's good to have you, man. It's good to have you. We have another podcaster and friend or acquaintance of Andy, I believe, Drew from You're Missing the Point. I hope we're not missing anything with this point.
Hey guys, sorry, got my times mixed up, so I'm a little bit late. Yeah, Drew Miss from your Miss the Point podcast. Jumping on board in this one because I've started researching Bock Saga with a bit more due diligence. Probably similar to where Paranoid is coming from. There's a lot of it which gels with my theories and my point of view around the evolution of language, the etymology, cultural dispersal across Europe, kind of origins of humanity. But then there's a large amount of it which, from my point of view, comes across purely as mythology, and a lot of it doesn't meet the scientific standard. So just here for a conversation to try and unpack it a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, man. And then we have Herr Ananto. Am I saying that right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm I'm Ananto. I'm sitting here in Berlin, in Germany, and it happened that I met Ia Bock already in 1989, and there I met also Michelle, and we became good friends. And I followed Ia 20 years in Goa, in Finland, in Berlin. I invited him once to Berlin, and I had an amazing time with this man, and I learned a lot from him. I hope so. And after he died, 2010, it took me quite a while to. I had this idea in my head how to continue the saga. I didn't know how, because I'm not a writer. But I found out I can talk. And then I stumbled upon Telegram. And I, in the lockdown 2020, I was in Thailand and had nothing to do, nowhere to go. And I started my Telegram channel in German. So it's more or less a listening book where I'm telling Bock Saga in German.
I'd like to pick your brain very much on the less esoteric and the more alternative history topics within it.
We'll get to that, bro. We'll get to that. We have one more guest, Michel. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, nice to see you all, guys. I have to put my head a little bit in the screen every now and then because you are quite soft for me, even when I have my machine on full power. But no problem. Yeah, let's see where to start. I met Eeyore 49 years ago, so that's already almost half century in the coming 8 9 months. And yeah, we became good friends from the moment we met, kind of, and so by all kind of strange happening, I ended up uh, half a year later in Finland. I went with one friend to India, but somehow how we ended up in Finland. And there I saw Eeyore on the TV dancing around in his washing powder advertisement, what he had been making in that time. So I recognized the guy, and no, yeah, from there I met him in hell, and yeah, I never got rid of him. So we have been spending from '84, the first 9 years that I know him, almost 10 years. I get to know Eeyore quite regularly. We traveled a lot, and I listened to his stories about 18th century because he was guiding around on the seven islands and telling the history of these islands about the 18th century. And I found that interesting, so I get more interested in history because this guy, he was not telling the war history, he was telling more the cultural history and how the people were living and what was happening, and without all this kind of battle and years and all this kind of story, you got more of an insight in how the people were living and how they had organized their life in that time. So I was in the situation that when he get the right to talk about his family saga in 1984, I already knew him almost 10 years. So of course I was very surprised. And straight away when he started to explain the alphabet, it caught my attention. And yeah, I have been sticking with it since that moment. So this year I have my 40-year celebration of being busy with Bock Saga.
40 years of Bock Saga. Okay, wow. That's
Yeah, so
okay.
I am the one who followed it from the beginning because in the first years there was not so many people interested.
Yeah,
After,
you have
uh,
done some interviews with Andy, right?
yeah, I did with Andy and with Jokke and with a load of different people. So sometimes I get confused with all these names and all these people that become kind of part of the having the same interest. But doesn't matter, we can just talk freely and say what we think and try to have good feeling in furthering and developing the understanding of Bock Saga. That's my main interest. And of course, opening that opening that part of the story which is hanging like one carrot in front of our nose, and that is the digging up of this golden box, which are the oldest artifacts created by human being on the planet, and the temple, the opening of the temple, and even more, that what is behind the temple, the storehouse or the Bock family treasure chambers, which is a construction that has been built in the Paradise time and was actually finished, that construction, by the end of Paradise time. And now we start to talk about one period in the history which is so far back that according to common understanding there were no people living on the planet. We were not existing. They are saying that in that time the dinosaur was running around here. But I think that from what I understand in Bock Saga there are no dinosaurs, so maybe they have to add a zero to their date of 60 or 65 million years, and go back to 600 and 650 million years. And that's something what sounds pretty crazy, because in our time, this date, what they put on this kind of animal that run around on the planet, become repeated so often so that it's like common knowledge. But that's a bit the same as with the human being who they say is coming walking out of Africa 70,000 years ago in the direction of Europe. And we know that they have been existing, this human being, based on those informations we get from Africa about 4 million years ago. So our story is pretty outlandish because we are talking about hundreds of millions of years and not about 4 million years. And that's
I do believe
very
I,
upsetting
I,
at the beginning.
I do believe that we have found a lot of evidence in the last few decades that
Correct.
show an alternative to the original thought of the human migration theories. And I think we see a lot more evidence now, like physical evidence, archaeology sites, etc., where we're seeing more populated, older civilizations closer to the poles, and not so much in what we would know as the cradle or Mesopotamia, because that dating back to only about 8,500 years. Now we see closer to the poles that there are a lot of archaeological sites dug up that are much closer to 20, 30,000 years. You know, some questionable sites that where they don't know whether it was human or Neanderthal occupation that are in 50, 60,000 years that are much closer. So, but I believe those were all human.
We can say, or we can talk about Neanderthal time, because that's actually the time from before Einstein, what we talk about the paradise time. And it's really true that since 1984, when we started this story, or Eeyore started this story, that in the beginning you are scratching your head and you are really wondering that what am I getting into now? But because of the sound system, it really caught my attention. So you start to follow a little bit more, let's say, the updates happening through archaeological excavations, and also the fact that the planet in our time has become very small. So, yeah, like Ananto and me, we belong to this kind of age group that from the 1960s, beginning 70s, had the possibility to go around the planet, something that was not possible for average human being. Yeah, before you had to belong to upper caste in order to go around, or you were a seaman, so that you could visit different ports around the planet. But we got the chance to travel. We get the passport, and you could go on the road, and buses were going, or you could stick your hand up on the side of the road and hitchhike anywhere. So, of course, from the 80s, I follow more. I seen already a lot by the middle of the 80s of the ball. So you are familiar with many of the different mythological concepts that exist around the planet. But from that moment, you follow also in Finland what is happening. So from the 1984 information of the history book of Finland, they say 1,000 years ago there were not living any people in Uudenmaan. And now, yeah, for us that was no problem, because we also could explain why 1,000 years ago there were no people in Uudenmaan, because it became destroyed in 1050, and that whole culture and everything that is related to that culture that was existing there has been completely taken out from any history books, stories, or whatever. Only small, how do you say that, small connotations relating to the possibility of something existing up north through the stories of Plato or Pythias or other people who have been traveling there in the time when the Greek culture was more prominent in the Mediterranean area and in Europe. So since 1984, Finland there happened a lot. Like within 2 years, they found a fishing net, 7,000 years old. Oh yeah, we understood that they have been living more than 9,000 years in Uudenmaa. So to find a fishing net from 7,000 years ago was nothing special. And then in the 1990s, they found one cave halfway up Finland on the west coast. And there is evidence of people having been hanging out under the ice time in that cave, where they are still researching. And the latest dates are that for sure they know that there has been people living there 250,000 years ago. But the possibility make that it can extend up to 450,000 years ago. Now, yeah, that of course blasts all understanding what we had in the, let's say, 40 years ago about the whole image surrounding Finland. Now, so many things have been found out. The latest one is this happening in Turkey, in Göbekli Tepe, or Küpeli Temple. It sounds very close, this Göbekli Tepe and Küpeli Temple, which is like giving one association to one life, which was not based, or was based, should have been based on other thing than being a hunter-gatherer society. So it's like the oldest accepted megalithic structure on the planet. Now, I've seen many megalithic structure on the planet in many places. I traveled around quite a lot, and you go and look to all these things that you can find around the planet. And now we try to date them according to our understanding, which is the time when I went to school. And you read from the book that.
Yeah, Stein, really quick, Andy is in the waiting room. I'm sorry.
Andy in the waiting room. Very brilliant. Nice to see Andy. Anyway, that they still try to explain us that these statues, this moai that you find on Easter Island, that they have been built in a time between 1300 and 1450. And no, yeah, we only knew the heads sticking out of the ground there, and so we have been looking at the heads. And when I went to visit there one time about what is it? It's about 20 years ago, 19 years ago. I went there, and by that time they had to start to dig to the foot of the statues, and they find out there is a layer of 5 meters of earth covering these things, making that only the heads stick out. Now, in order to get 5 meters more earth on one tropical island in the South Pacific, there must have been passing millions and millions and millions and millions of years, But of course, officialdom is still sticking to this 1400, 1500 theory, So then you start, of course, when you are confronted with that, to question just about anything what they say about any megalithic structure on the planet. Because you can't measure how old stones are. You can only measure circumferential evidence, but not the age of the stone. How old is a stone? Now, in my understanding, stone is as old as the creation of the planet, with the exception of lava stone and that kind of stuff, But like granite and basalt and stuff like that, it has been around since the creation of the planet. Now, yeah, all these things, we can go on for hours about this subject, where they have been finding more and more evidence, like our good friend here. Let me see, what was your name again? Will you just make that comment? Yeah. So, we have Iori had a way of, hey, we have to leave everything open because we don't know and we can't prove it until we reach that carrot what Bock Saga is dangling in front of our nose, which would revolutionize the understanding of the human being and the life on this planet. Yeah, we would get such a dramatic, different perspective that it would shock everybody out of its wits. And maybe we are living in the time where we need such a thing in order to not discredit the scientist or the archaeologist or the historical people with all their fantastic books creating world from the last 100, 120, 140 years. We didn't have a book culture 140 years ago. It's only 140 years ago that we started to go to school because we had to learn how to read and write. So up to 140 years ago, all information what you got, except when you belong to high caste people in some middle European countries or in North America, they would have books on the table. But the average Joe bloke, he had only the Bible in his house. And if he could read it, it was very fantastic, of course. But many couldn't had it standing there. It was more like an attribute because they couldn't understand what was in the book. And for that, they needed a priest to explain it for the people. So by 1880s, we basically, 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, we throw out our grandparents from the house and we live with Papa and Mama. And now we had to listen to the story of the teacher and not anymore the story of your family. So before, all your knowledge was based on the traits and the understanding existing within different families who were all based on oral tradition. And it's only in the last 140 years that we become these visionary, vision type people who take all their information from black letter on white paper. So that's maybe quite nice as an introduction. Otherwise, I never shut up.
No, you said a lot already, Thomas. I know you had some questions as well. You're one of the reasons why this roundtable came together, because like we can do this over Twitter and like have a Twitter beef, or we can just do it on the roundtable and have at least try to have a civilized discussion about this.
Yeah, and what's funny, I guess, is that none of my questions have really anything to do with I guess what's been known the icky part of the Bock Saga, the part that we do not talk about in polite company, right? But my leading question here: how did Eeyore himself feel about this? Was there ever a sentiment of like, don't ever mention autofellatio, don't mention any of the sex or the fluids, and just focus on the alphabet? Or was he completely like, talk about any part of it you want?
With me, because I was in the situation that he had the right to start to talk about this story in February of '84. And that was a couple of months before his mother died. And then he told me that Rhea, she knows that she will be dead before he is coming home. So for her, it was important that he transferred to his friends with whom he had been traveling and who know him already for quite a while, that he start to open the subject of the sound system with him there in that winter. And I put it in my head. And in the autumn, we met again in Goa. And from that moment, he started to talk very plain language. The first thing he told me, because when he started with the alphabet, there was nothing about sperm and magla and all this kind of thing. But straight in the beginning of October, when we met again, he blasted my head for the next 6 months with all this kind of stories, So he didn't hold back there. But in the same time, we became used to talk about it. We became used to the fact that we are born from sperm that goes to one egg and out come human being, masculine or feminine. So he opened that subject and told that in my family, we have this ritual that we drink from ourselves in the form of sauna solmu. Yeah, so this knot what you can make, the sauna knot which you can make, by which you can drink from yourself when you start at the age of 7 to practice it, because then you are still very flexible kid, very rubbery. You can put your legs in behind your neck and this kind of thing, which for me was impossible. So of course I know that most boys, they have tried if they can reach, but hey,
With or without Bock Saga.
95% of us, they break their back while trying. But some of my friends who are a bit more flexible than I am, they managed. So also he showed me that it's possible. So if somebody can show you that it's possible, you can't doubt that anymore. But of course, I am the one who can't do that not. But I find my palm in the palm of my hand, and you can dip a little bit sperm in there if you reach the orgasm, and you can just drink it from your hand, and you wipe your hand over your head, over your skull, and it does really well, I tell you.
Was that ever meant to be secret, or was there any time that Eeyore communicated like, save this part until after someone is sold on the alphabet, or could you lead with this and that would be fine?
No, it was really
Anyone
okay.
else wants to weigh in on this, like totally do. Like this is indeed like the kind of stuff that people seem to want to avoid talking about, while it's one of the more like we call it icky, but you could like call it controversial, like drinking from yourself, like self-fellatio, and all of that. It's something that Thomas, as you rightfully says, you don't talk about in polite society.
Well, that's what's been told to me direct, and that word icky wasn't my own creation. I've heard that come up a few times, and I guess the point was that reading it for the first time myself and just being like, oh, I didn't realize that the entire thing kind of revolves around semen and vaginal fluids, and that you can't leave that to the side and be like, let's talk about everything but that, because that is the core of it all. If you remove sperm and you remove vaginal fluid and you remove drinking it, then it almost like there's no more Bock Saga left.
Correct.
Ananto, you wanted to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit. This is somehow essential on the whole saga, and everybody should know that. It's maybe unusual in the beginning when you hear it. Like for everybody, for nearly everybody, it was somehow, he was confronted with his own upbringing, with his own structure inside of his head, education. But there are two things which are absolutely essential. It's the sound system, and it's this ritual of drinking sperm and mahala. It's called in the saga offering from yourself to yourself. It's the first part of the offering system. And looking back on my life, and I mean I can talk freely about it. I got used to it. I'm not talking in a sexualized way or in a way, like making it funny. No, it's a serious thing, actually, if you think. I mean, everything in my life led me to the point that I met in the end this strange guy from Finland who told me drink your own sperm and be happy. And it was like, yes, why not? Let's try that. And it took me a while to find out that there's some strange power behind. It's an effect that it makes when you do that for a while. I found out in the first few weeks that it has an effect. And somehow in my life, when I was a boy of 13 or 14 years, I tried to do it myself. I tried to give myself get my cock in the mouth and do it, and I just did it out of curiosity. And I remember back, I didn't know anything on Bock Saga yet. I got some strange buzz from it. Something happened to me. And then I saw a big picture of a yogi, Indian yogi, who is doing his yoga exercises. And I looked at the pictures, there were 20 different postures, and I thought, wow, this guy's, he could actually suck his own dick in standing, in sitting, in lying. And then I thought, no, wait, these are holy men from India. They don't do that. Oh no, that's why they are doing it.
Did you say standing?
Yeah, a good yogi can do it in standing.
Yeah, that's quite impressive.
I've never even heard that was a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, that's
two
right.
gentlemen that met Eeyore.
I would call it, that's the secret part of yoga.
For the two gentlemen that have met Eeyore, I know he at one point traveled to South Asia, if I'm not mistaken, but did he spend time with the Sami in northern Finland and Norway? The Sami?
No, very, very little. He has met Sami people. I have been with him in 1975 in Lapland. A couple of weeks we walked around there. And we met some people, but he was not particularly interested in Sami, besides that they are part of the Finnish culture of today. And he could explain it to me, not of course in the first 10 years that I knew him, but already by the end of 84, when after the introduction to the fact that in his family, everybody starts to drink from themselves from the age of 7, and they do it with this kind of knot. And he explained to me also, it is a touchy subject, because when you are two guys talking about such a thing, the first reaction of many people is, oh, they must be homosexual.
Well, I mean, everybody I think has maybe had a scab on their thumb or pricked their finger and had a drop of blood on it, and without second thinking it, just especially in younger years, just consumed it.
Correct.
So we have all been, and it's, of course, if people see it and they're like, ew, it's so stigmatizing. I think any bodily fluid, there's automatically a stigma. You know what I mean? It's just a social conditioning that we've had beaten into us over time. Everything is evil,
And they're the
True.
confusion.
Legacy of the church.
Water boy.
Hold up, guys. Drew, you had something you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a difference between sucking your thumb if you've got a paper cut versus sucking yourself off. That seems a bit weird. This is where I think Bock Saga really starts to fall apart. The wheels start to fall off the great stuff that's hidden away within it. It presents a case for the evolution of language, the root language, where cultures have a common source and all these mythologies kind of converge into a single point. And I think that's great for the alternative side of history. But there's elements within it which I think that the diehard crew in Bock Saga seem to really defend when observable reality and basic science kind of destroy it quite instantly. And the one that I've come across that's through Andy's benefit, through his Telegram group, the English one, a lot of the guys on there are really open. They like to talk about it, is the human origins idea of the monkey and the goat, in which I haven't really been able to get any kind of a solid answer on how humanity could possibly have started from a monkey and a goat hybridization.
Well, Andy,
Well,
since you
I can tell you that I was
Maybe-
not there. I was not there when this monkey has been jumping that goat. So,
I know it's not that odd of a thing culturally when you think about the Göktürk people or some of the old Turkish belief of I don't mean Turkish as in the people that live in Turkey now, but the old Turkic belief that they stemmed from a swan and a wolf.
no,
Yeah,
the swan-
that again would be something that's not actually possible. So you have to look at Bock Saga as there's definitely mythological elements in Bock Saga. It's not entirely truth.
Biologically speaking, it definitely wouldn't be possible, but that's where the mythology part indeed comes in. Andy, by the way, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming. I know you had the times a bit mixed up, but Good to have you.
Yeah, I apologize. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, man.
Good to see everybody. Appreciate it.
Since
What
you're
up, Andy?
here and we've landed on this, care to weigh in?
On the goat and the monkey? Well, yeah. So I guess I can come at this from just my own perspective here is that I've always looked at the Bock Saga as one of the hallmarks in our quote unquote hidden history that points to most of our religious and mythological ideologies being just that, stories that represent something else. And the Bock Saga points to everything being very human based, but they have a couple items within the Bock Saga that are very mythological from the modern perspective. And of course, if you talk to Michelle or even Eeyore or Jim Chesner, the people closest to it, they would say that the root language can undoubtedly prove how that's like reality.
Yeah.
But at the same time, from a modern perspective, it's very hard for anyone to look at that and go, well, okay, yeah, I'll take that at face value. So it's a really complicated issue. I have heard, vague interpretations of it being an astrological thing where it kind of points to a time period possibly. But honestly, yeah, I mean, I would say the best thing to do would be to ask the root language speakers or those who understand the root language.
I also heard a similar thing real quick, Andy, that it was the sign of two different families, like a brand almost, like their I don't know what you want to call it, crest or motto. One was the goat and one was so I've heard several different explanations for that.
Well, that actually, I mean, just to follow up with that, yeah, that kind of adds up for me a little bit, that because we know from the saga that they would name the stars after their elders, right? So, and I'm sure that's not the only story we have about naming stars after elders, but the Bock Saga does talk about that. So, I mean, having it to do with family, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
The first thing I came up with was that in my youth, they say that we are coming from one monkey, but there is a missing link. So the missing link is up to today the great mysterium. Now, of course, when you hear such a story in the beginning, you are thinking, no, yeah, why not? Because I already knew that the milk of one goat is the most close to the mother's milk that we all have been suckling when we grew up. So there I find one association with the goat to say, yeah, because I know there is many culture still today in Europe when mothers don't have enough milk, but they are having goats on their farm, they are bringing the baby to the goat on the farm and let it suckle from the tit of the goat to take the goat's milk and grow up with that and become perfectly, between brackets, normal human being like we are. That's the first thing. So the next thing is that we get into contact with one man who is doing research on how you call that, high or hybridization. Yeah,
Hybridization.
Hybridization. And in the hybridization, in the investigation of the animal that seems to be more close to us, according to their investigation, is the pig. Now, the pig is just now being used for its spare parts in order to repair all kinds of bodily parts in the human being. And now further research of this hybridization people in the last 30 years, they find out that when animals are quite similar, like the horse and the donkey, which is the most well-known animal in hybridization, because from one donkey and one horse, they make something called mule.
Yeah,
And
hybridization in nature is quite
Yeah.
common
So-
indeed. You also have it like between lions and tigers making ligers.
Yeah.
It's
But-
not uncommon.
No, but the thing, what is with this animal is that they can't reproduce by themselves. So they can't
Yes.
reproduce when they are kind of similar in their structure. But they have been finding out over the last 20 years that when animals are more separate from each other and there occurs hybridization, the possibility for procreation is quite big. So that's something that was also new to me. But when you come then across this kind of thing,
Hybrid vigor.
sorry,
Well, it's like taking a pink farm pig. You can reintroduce it into the wild, and it will meet a razorback or any other type of swine, and they will immediately start reproducing.
yeah,
Not only that, the pink hairless farm pig will immediately start growing hair and
Yeah.
start reintegrating into nature.
This is the this is the type of interaction I seem to get on this question. But I find it's kind of clutching at straws because when you bring up examples like a lion and a tiger or a horse and a donkey, those are
They're
closely
similar.
related subfamily groups. To your benefit, that yes,
Yeah, it's not like
humans
a bat
do
and a
share-
dingo.
Yeah, humans do share a certain amount of DNA with other things on this planet. That's a given. We all grew on this earth. We have 40% similar DNA with apples, for heaven's sakes. But there is a massive divide between something of the goat family or the goat genus versus a monkey from the simian family group. That there's a divide that can't be there, which definitely leads me to think that it's definitely more along the lines of an allegory, a mythology, or its own pseudo-religious kind of aspects of Bock Saga that really haven't been unpacked quite as much.
That's why the family crest kind of always stuck with me.
We should let Ananto jump in.
Yeah, this guy actually, what Michelle talked about, he's an American biologist and genetic professor called Eugene McCarthy. You should maybe Google it. He was considered, I think he's dead by now, I'm not sure, as the expert on hybrids on the plant kingdom and the animal side. So, and he pointed out that hybridization is a very normal way of nature to create new species. Yeah, that was his life work. I think he has been writing some books about it. And I actually wrote to him, but he never answered. I don't know why. So I don't know if the letter reached him. So and he came to the idea that he said human beings are a typical hybrid species. There must be two animals far away from each other who somehow had sexual intercourse, and we came out of it. But he thought it's the pig. So there was one monkey fucking a pig, or one male pig fucking a monkey, or something like that. I think he thought like that. And he came up with some quite interesting stories about it. And of course, he was laughed about, and the community made jokes about him. But when you know Bock Saga, it says no, it was the goat. Now, according to Eeyore, the goat was not only the mother of man, but also the mother of pig, sheep, and cow. We don't know who the father is. I think these people from the old times, they knew a lot about genetics. That was maybe one of the first signs of mankind. So they've been crossing certain animals in order to get something new. And the sheep and the pig and the cow had the same mother, the goat. No, just wait. When I heard it for the first time, it was Jim Chesner telling me that. He was popping up in Berlin and he started Bock Saga, and I listened to the guy and I thought this guy is crazy. And he talked about, he's sitting there for 1 or 2 hours already, and he started to tell the story about the monkey and the goat. And it went, something in me went like, what the fuck did you say at the moment? Monkey and a goat and human people come out? And it was the first time when it somehow clicked in my head. And it was like, lightning came down and said, wow, that's the best explanation I ever heard so far. You know, the missing link. And it became I don't know, it became somehow, the first moment it became clear to me, yes. Why? And I said to him, just look around. Look, behavior of man is we always make the monkey. I don't know, but behavior of women, I don't know if that's true in your language, in the German language is very, very present. We say to the woman, you're stupid goat. And the woman says to us, you stupid monkey. And we are considering women as goaty. I don't know, it's zickig, Michel. Is there an English word for it?
Yeah, you explain it quite well. They have more association in the language and in their behavior as goats, because they always meh, 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 meh. You know, if we take it now in a little bit jokey.
Yeah,
not meant.
I'm Ananto. I know what you mean. I'm Dutch myself, so
so you know
German.
this thing.
I do.
Yeah, goatee. Women have something that, and but I lived in Goa for quite a while, and I had the chance to watch goats. There's a lot of goats running around. I mean, should I continue to talk? It's become serious.
If anyone else wants to,
I just really quick wanted to say something that real quick, just that mythological or proven through root language or one way or another, we should all be looking at the Bock Saga as anthropologists, whether we have degrees or not. You know, like anthropologically, we look at the Mayans, we look at all these different cultures all around the world from ancient times, and we make our own opinions, or we make our educated opinions about them and what they're symbolically saying, or what they might have really been saying underneath the metaphors or this or that. And you know, it's a little bit difficult when this is like a live action one, when it's the mythology is still happening right now in front of us. You know what I mean? Where if you have 3 languages in your head, yes, I've heard from many, many people that it clicks and it's like, it makes too much sense to deny. I get that. As an American, I don't have that ability, and I don't have the Swedish or the Finnish or anything in my head to be able to do that. But I do know how to look at things just objectively. And unfortunately, I've never come at this from it's all hinging on their origin story. What I like, and also what I would like to point out that Drew and I have in common, and we like to talk about often, is the historical aspect of how the Bock Saga does fit into things. And I'm not trying to change the subject here. I just wanted to throw that in before I forget that. Honestly, I went backwards with it for the most part. And I went, well, I was already thinking all of these things about history, and it seems to line up with that. And yes, there's this root language that apparently thousands of people still speak.
Yes.
Eeyore didn't just come up with it and make it up like some shyster, you know? And, so that helped me go, well, I don't know enough to confirm or deny any of these other things, but my God, we're all questioning evolution in the conspiracy theory world anyway. You know, I mean, might as well
Andy, I can only suggest to you also, if this fascinates you, look at Urantia. Anybody that's looked into the Bock Saga, I've also told them, look at Urantia, because there are parallels and there are pieces that it fits in with, like pieces that are missing from the Bock Saga. There's pieces of Urantia that kind of like lock in, and they are 2 things that you could literally build together, and I think build a bigger story out of.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because we also have, of course, Jan Ott and others who have talked about the Oralinda book, which also that would be like maybe a triangulation, because the Oralinda book, we talk about that a lot in the Telegram. how
Or
it
Linda was very close to home
corresponds.
for me.
Yeah.
The Phrygian story.
He's
Yeah.
living just around the corner here, you know, so it's like funny.
Yeah.
I get to
I mean,
know him
I-
already many
I
years
literally
ago.
just came from Frisia today. I was with my kids, so I literally just came home from Frisia. Rob, you wanted to weigh in on this. You wanted to you had something to say.
Yeah, what's up, Rob?
Who's that, me?
Mr. Renegade. Yeah, you're up, bro.
Hey. Hey. I was just going to say quickly about the hybrid idea. It seems to me the first problem that occurs when trying to visualize something like this is this assumption that the mixing of two species would create a visually 50-50 mix. You know, for example, like a liger, which is visually, you can see it's a pretty much 50-50 mix of a lion and a tiger. Whereas the little bit of information I've got from Saga has suggested that the first two people, Frey and Freya, were not anatomically identical to subsequent people that came after them. You know, they may have had hooves or a little bit of a tail or horns, maybe.
No.
What does Michelle think? I can see him shaking his head.
We have been human being. The human being is coming out of this combination of animal. And now you have to think about one goat that is existing hundreds of millions of years ago. We are living in a completely different world with a completely different energy, with a completely different earth axis, with a world that is unimaginable for our type of people who are born in the real world that we live in. Yeah, so this is our reality, and our reality defines us, but also limits our, how would you say, not fantasy. I don't mean the word fantasy, but it limits our way of looking at things in a more objective way, because we have defined our own limits and borders based on the present situation of the planet. So that's something which you have to take into consideration also, that we had a different nature before than today, wherein all this kind of plant and animal species that are running around on this globe, they were existing. Maybe not all of them, because the times that make that the earth change has also been creating new animals, like the Arctic domestic animals that come within the Arctic. Yeah. So these people needed these animals. Now that gives again another dimension to the story, because we human beings are the only one that can voice the nature around us. So all species have their own nature, the tree, the bushes, the roses, the lions, the tigers, the squirrels, all have their particular trip. But we are the only one who have the capacity from the throat to voice sound, where, according to Bock Saga, every sound has a meaning. And the whole story is based on the meaning of these 29 individual sounds that any human being can produce. He can even make more sounds than just these 29, but it is these basic 29 that hold a particular meaning, which is unlocking the key to the understanding of nature and the human being and its history. Now, if you take it in that way, that I had, of course, also this problem when he started to me in the autumn of 1984, and he started to talk about this monkey goat story. So I say, on what do you base it? I say, I base it on the information that I get from my parents. And he say to me that it is basically the alphabet that explains it. It's within the alphabet of the root language by which you can show through one story that we must be the product of one monkey and one goat. Now, by that time, I was still thinking quite simple, so I thought that, hey, if there is all the scientists running around on the planet and they are looking for a missing link I can be very happy with the fact that we come from one goat, because for me, basically, it's all the same. You know, if it would have been one pig, it would have been okay for me too. But I already got the information that these Arctic domestic animals are created from the goat and in the ice time. Now, that's only 50 million, 10,000 and 40 years ago, when that process started to go, in which they, through hybridization, have been creating from the goat also the pig, the sheep, and the cow. No, there are many more stories like this. Now, if you go, you know, I don't want to bore you with the sound system to explain this thing, but the sound system give names to this animal. We give name to this animal, and we give them a particular. Through that name that we give them, they hold particular associations, because we have 29 sounds with a meaning, and the whole story is based on the meanings of this sound, and through experimenting in different directions, discussing different words, we all the time find that when we use these systems, we are confirmed in our way of thinking. Now, after you have thousands and later on 10,000 of example, yeah, which you just can't put out of your hi-hat just in the second somebody asks you, but through the course of talking about the subject, all these examples come up, which enlarge your understanding and also support the possibility that we are a hybrid product from one monkey and one goat in one time, that our nature has been created.
To expand on that, though.
Drew, you had a follow-up for this.
Well, just going off the common understood method, we know that modern day humans via races are archaic admixtures of what was considered a modern human at a certain point and different subspecies of upright walking humans. That's kind of an established academic fact at this point. So my next follow-up question kind of comes to, okay, humans are on the earth according to the Bock Saga, and all humans exist. How does it account for the different variations of humans, say Denisovans, Neanderthals, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Florensis? Are these just considered a human across the board for Bock Saga, or is there a deviation between the different types of humans?
So all what we consider to be pre-humans or
near human
of human.
There are in the Bock Saga, there are no pre-humans to humans. The closest animal that the Bock Saga sees related to the human being is the monkey, and for us it's probably the chimpanzee who was the one that jumped on that goat, because the chimpanzee is also an animal that holds anatomically quite many similarities with the human being. Yeah, in the way.
Although the primates, it's not the one that is genetically closest to us. That would actually be the bonobo.
The bonobo.
Yeah, but we have to look at this from a modern lens a little bit too, and understand that not all reproduction is done the old-fashioned way. We now have in vitro fertilization, and we understand that hybridization can be done externally by humans, which we do often to other animals. We've created like 3,000 subspecies of birds.
But we do want to keep in mind that this story takes place in nature first. I mean, but then again, yeah, I get what you're saying. The technology of our times could play a role in this, but yeah.
This is probably not the first round of technology that humanity has had. I mean, we can all pretty much establish that, right? It may have been different. It may have been sound-based or vibrational-based in the past instead of electrical-based like ours is now, but humanity has had different types of technology through its vast time on Earth.
And stories of hybridization, like you find it everywhere. I mean, the most well-known that we have, if we want to include humankind in this, is the Anunnakis supposedly altering us or like mixing us, I believe, indeed, with monkey DNA to create those, those workers who can mine all that gold for them.
But this is dangerous territory because that's Zachariah Sitchin's interpretation of Sumerian texts. That's not Sumerian text.
tropes.
No,
Yeah, but
I know, but like it's a story. It's a well-known
There's theory
story.
and tropes in every culture.
It's very easy to explain away this kind of story. Very easy.
And I think
I'd also like to say, when we're quoting academia, we have to be careful. As the great Michael Tessarian says, like, you can't come at alternative history by disproving it with academic history. Correct. I'm not saying we throw everything out. We have to remain within the means of logic and reason and the scientific method. But, even aspects of the scientific method, I don't know. I haven't jumped into that topic yet, but I might have to, because I mean, the roots of most of our modernity and our academia is tarnished at best.
I mean, do we understand how Odin's spear never missed? Do we understand how Thor's hammer shot lightning bolts? I mean, it is not there's a lot of it, I would say, that is maybe seen through the scope of an eye that didn't understand it. Like somebody looking at a nuclear submarine, interpreting it as a Leviathan or something, right? Or Thor's hammer as like the spindle in the middle of a generator shooting sparks. You know what I mean? There could have been like a lot of other explanations for it. We have to kind of gauge around bits of it to try to understand it from our modern lens, and I think that is a really difficult thing to do.
Well, I see. That's why
a limited view,
and that's where I think this root language, which needs more exposure, and I don't know I wouldn't be able to start on how to give that to a broader audience. It would be like a 4-year-old's ABCs lesson almost, to relearn everything. And for Westerners to understand the root language enough to confirm it for themselves, but it's fascinating to me that this root language that confirms all of these things pretty much solely, Eeyore didn't create this root language. No. Long after the saga came out, many people that heard of the saga in that area of the world were like, whoa, this is our language and we've been speaking it for a long time. And there's a man named Nino in our Telegram who's slowly making a documentary with his friends and family about this root language that many thousands of people still speak. And the Bock Saga, they're all about it. So
are they spread out, or is this like one locality of people in Finland?
Yeah, it's one.
Michelle, could you? Yeah,
I can do that. It is just one locality in Finland. Of course, today people move around, so you can also, as a root person, find yourself to live in the middle of Finland or on the west coast, where there are more Swedish-speaking people who have been coming in the historical times. So the historical times of Swedish people in Finland is from around the year 1250. So that's only 750 years ago. They know in Sweden that these Swedish people can't speak with Finnish-speaking people, because it's a completely different language, completely different. Yeah, for me, Finnish, it was more close to Chinese as to anything else. It's something that is totally out of the perspective of people who are living with a language of which we say is a 12th system language. So the English language, the Dutch language, the German language, the Norwegian, the Irish, the whole lot of Western Europe is based on what they call the Germanic language, and the Germanic languages are based on a 12 system. We count to 12 before we change to 13, 14, 15. The same in Finnish, you count to 10. And from there you start to tin, or toista, as they use the word, from 10. So 11 is yksi toista, kaksi toista, kolme toista. So they repeat the first numbers up to 10 when we have actually a 12 system language from where we start to change. Now, if you are grown up with this 12 system language, the Finnish language is very difficult, just like Hindi or Arabic or Chinese or American Indian languages, which are all based on a 10 system, which is less how you say that, less accessible to the way our brain is formed when you live with the 12 system. Yeah, you still do it in the States also, because you are living in your mathematics system also with the 12 system. You talk about gallons and all this kind of stuff, you know.
Inches and
For
feet and
West
stuff.
European, who has become completely metric, so based on the Finnish 10 system, we have become completely metric in our way of calculating millimeters, centimeters, kilometers, and so on, you know. But yeah, in England they do now both since 1973, 74, when they joined the common market. They also switched from their 12 shilling system and their pounds and their whole lot into a metric system, so they can use both. But because you are living on an island there in between the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean, you stuck to your English way of interpreting your counting system. Now, that makes that you have more or less accessibility to this type of languages. Yeah, so for you to learn Spanish is also maybe not so difficult because of the great similarity between words within the Spanish or Italian language and the English language, which they all say comes from Romanization or something like that. Now, I wanted to, with this example, come somewhere, but I kind of lost it. Yeah, these Finnish people. In a relatively small area in the south of Finland, there lived people who from their tradition have always been speaking root language. But now in the 1900s, we start to make history book by history professor. And history professor have been getting their information from where? From those people who could read and write. Then you ended up straight away in the priest caste of people. So all these people who have been author from before the 19th century, practically all of them have been affiliated in their education by the Christian church, by the priest caste of people, because that is where you learned to read and write. Now, then because of the unclarity and the hiding of the existence of this culture in South Finland, of this Aser, what we talk about, the Aser. We don't talk about Aser, we talk about Aser. Aser is the information what you get via the Swedish and the Danish and the Norwegian tradition and history book. And they hold different information on the characters that form the basis of the language of the people in Uudenmaa, in the south of Finland. Yeah, so they talk about Odin and we talk about Uden. Now in Sweden, the Swedish, they had to accept this Danish Odin. So everybody talk about Odin, 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 but Odin doesn't mean anything. Nothing. But it is their naming of the highest that exists within nature. And they personify it, just like we do within the Finnish mythology. So if
What is
you
the
have,
English translation of Udenma?
yeah, if you have so you have we accept that in heathendom that the sun is the biggest power in the universe, and now we have one family who represent that sun. The next biggest power affecting the life on the planet is the moon. And now we have one part of that family that is representing those aspects. Yeah, so it's the first son and the first daughter who represent moon, which in Finnish is kuu. So king and queen, kuningas and kuningatar. So directly relating to this bodies floating there in the space. So we are living with the information from the book from Nordic mythology, which is 100% based on information that is written by members from the priest caste in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and Germany. Yeah, those are the sources for our understanding on the mythological characters pertaining to heathendom. Yeah, and they became an abstraction because there is nobody with one hammer flying there in the sky and throwing his hammer and making the lightning within this universe. You know, it's always been how to say a symbolic way of relating to aspects of life of the human being. Yeah, so the family who procreates automatically represents sun because sun is a fertility symbol. Yeah, moon is not a fertility symbol. So the moon is giving signs to us. So it becomes the symbolic for the king and queen who give out information because the moon is giving signs to us, and signs we produce by our language and by our understanding, and that make that there were people who represent the moon in our way of talking. Yeah, it's not mean that they are living on the moon. So in that way, you have one family who was in a symbolic way representing these different powers. And powers are always something having to do with aspects of nature. Yeah, so hell is an aspect of nature, and Bock is an aspect of nature, and E is an aspect of that Bock, and of and of us, you know, in the sound and the meaning. And Uden, it's one power because Uden is the sun, and Uden is everything because everything is visible and for us experienceable because we are alive on the planet and we can observe and express this kind of phenomena that belongs to power. So that's what makes these to be powers. Yeah. So we
Okay,
have
so
Uden Ratur Freya, which is a power of us coming into existence. So every man become one Frey, and every woman become one Freya. Yeah.
Andy,
But now
you wanted to jump in on some stuff. From this point on, the roundtable will be R-rated. So children, either keep your ears closed or get away.
Well,
gonna get
I
nasty.
wanted to jump in just because I was away from my computer, and when Thomas was going into the icky thing, the icky stuff, I believe I started that personally on a sarcastic post. I think I did, and the reason for that was because it seemed to me that a mutual friend of ours was only focusing on that, and I understand that what you found out was that, oh my God, it all revolves around this. But, you know, we've never shied away from talking about it. But to me, it's just never been the most fascinating part about it. I understand why it is fascinating. I really do.
Well, I agree
But
with
it was
you.
never.
I
It was
don't
never
think
the
it's
most
the most
fascinating part to me, but
part.
the reason why I was calling it the icky stuff sarcastically was mainly because what was being presented to quite a big audience at this point was that it was just this very Western, you know, gay fear fucking like thing that was going on. And it was just like, oh my God, they're sucking their own, like, ooh, sperm. And it's like, we're not in high school anymore. We're trying to be adults about this. And again, I say, let's look at this anthropologically. And I can't stress enough. And I think Longo brought this up on One-on-One's podcast a while back, that the fact that like we have this primordial idea of a people realizing that there was a substance that literally created life
Yes.
Lord knows without the Catholic Church what that does to the human consciousness naturally and
Yes.
what you would do with that substance. I don't know. And none of us know. But I can
Well,
only imagine the revering of that substance would be more likely than the discarding of it.
It's
That's
the
really-
trial and error that led to the understanding of it that I always find comical.
Yeah.
Like, how did they get to the point where they finally understood that?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, it was probably a spill or who knows? Or, I don't know. It was probably much more. But what's interesting is that we grow up in a society, and we have for thousands and thousands of years, where we're just literally copycatting our parents. We're modeling them. We're just literally learning language from them. And that's how it goes. And that's not uncommon from what it was like in Paradise time in this Bock Saga perspective either. But what's interesting is that the Bock Saga presents an idea as if there were like, and this is my mythology, you know, this isn't real. This is just a hypothetical, that it's as if humans were dropped off as they are and just left to figure out reality on their own. And naturally, they started from the inside out. And what was important remained important. And what's really interesting about that is that that's kind of like the saga of consciousness, you know, coming into physicality. I mean, not to get too out there or too, you know, sidelined, but it's too fascinating not to think about. And obviously, it's one theory out of many, but
You find two types of people, though, Andy. You find the type of people that go, "Oh my God, that's repulsive," and then you find the type that go, "Please tell me more." Right?
There's in betweens
they want to try it. There's gradients, and the people that say, "Please tell me more," it may be because they're generally curious, or because they want to try it, or because they're just confused about life in general and they're looking for more understanding. But I have a quick question based on that. I always have this question. How many people in this group are by any chance devout Catholics or Christians?
Boo! Get out of here,
Two?
guys.
I see 1.5. That
This
didn't
is
seem
a
too sure,
pagan
Andy.
roundtable.
No, I was pointing to.
But it's a curiosity
Drew.
thing. Like you know,
I love
a lot
that he's
of
a
Christians
Christian
you'll
and
often
he's
see
in
just
here,
go,
you know?
"Nope, not even talking about it."
Exactly. And that's why I love Drew. And I want to give shout outs to Drew because he's always 1-1 with me on this topic. Because, like, even though there's controversies in here that he doesn't like, there's also like a lot of historical context that he's fascinated by. And I really appreciate that because he's an academic who has gone against the grain. You know, it's good. Cheers to you, Drew.
Like, what is there something inherently wrong, neutrally, but if there's something wrong with reading this, finding the novelty of it incredibly funny, and then just sharing that funny novel part and not talking about the alphabet and not talking about the origins of human consciousness, like, does that just having the fun and like telling jokes about that and making memes, is that doing a disservice to the Bock Saga in that it's like turning people away, or are the people that would be turned away by that like never would have been on board anyways? And I know no one here knows what Eeyore Bock would have thought about internet memes making fun of it. Maybe they do, but like, was there an idea, like, was there a sense of humor about it, or was it at a certain point of like, all right guys, stop making jokes about dicks?
No, we have been making jokes from day one, man.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, you have to. And I just want to jump in real quick, and I'll let Michelle go. But Thomas, I just want to say that I really appreciate the attention that you've brought in the way that you've brought to the Bock Saga, even though it's controversial and some people don't like it. I really appreciate it because honestly, I've been saying since day one, since I heard about it, how the fuck do you appeal this to a Western audience without comedy, without novelty? And so I do appreciate that big time because you've probably brought more people than I have to the Bock Saga, and I appreciate that, man.
A very simple thing is that many times in our time we talk about consciousness. And what is consciousness? Yeah, consciousness is something that is pervading everything. Yeah, so the whole universe is consciousness. Can I say that?
I agree.
Yeah. So if
you might get a banned off YouTube if you say that out loud.
If the universe is one, and there is one consciousness. That consciousness must be the original consciousness. Yeah, and now religion has been jumping on that. That people in the past must have been understanding also that all consciousness is universal. Yeah, so there is one consciousness, but now it's expressing itself in a myriad of different people, different culture, different locality, different nature. What make, of course, that the time has been making that we have not been converging, but we have been diverging. And all these different divergent aspects of that one consciousness has been expressing itself in different culture, with different form, with different modules. But now a basic of that from the beginning must have been same for everybody, because we are all children of our papa and our mama and our closest relatives, by whom we are brought up, by whom we are copycatting their program. Like you already said, we are monkeys in essence, because we are just copying papa and mama. Yeah.
Monkey
So
see, monkey do.
the boys will tend more to copy papa, and the girls will tend to copy more mama. But now in our time, because we have become so democratic, we are not anymore even accepting the difference between men and women in our gender war of our times, Yeah, so we seem to be kind of confused about that, because men and women have a completely different role. The thing is that we can communicate, we can speak together, so we can make ourselves understood. So that people have been doing from the beginning, because the modern theory is that we lived in the cave and we come out of the cave, and I beat this other guy with one big stick on his head, and then he say ow, and that is how we come to the sound ow, because with the ow it hurts. Yeah, that is kind of the evolution of language within the species of human being who is coming from a monkey. But if you are a hybrid and you are like any other animal or any other species, come out from that nature that was there, that allowed that possibility, that allowance must come from the consciousness of a universal consciousness that gives us the possibility. Now, if you want to call that God, it's no problem for me. In root, we call it good, because consciousness and the universe and everything in it, it's good. Because without it, if it would be bad, that means that we would try to fix it from the morning to the evening. But we are not fixing anything.
On this, you wanted to you had a comment you wanted to make about this, Mr. Renegades.
There we go. I was just going to jump in or follow on rather from what Michelle was saying about the universe and consciousness. I take Udin, if Udin is the sun and the universe, and the sun is where we get our soul from the solar, I take Udin to be both conscious and the seat of consciousness itself. And if Udin is the universe, well, when I break that down, uni obviously means one. We all know that. And a verse is part of a song, a poem, or a speech. So that makes it a sound or a frequency. So can we not say that universe means one frequency, and possibly that frequency is love?
There's a funny thing to just throw it in. In Finnish language, the word uni means dream. And verse is one verse. So it's one dream verse. Yeah, it's something what the Aboriginal use when they talk about the dream time. Yeah.
Now,
and
have you guys heard the Purple Lady, the DMT, the shared consciousness thing, where like people all over the world will experience the same thing? I mean, there's got to be something to a universe.
Of course, if you see it, we had it 100 years ago when we start to distribute glass milk bottles with an aluminium cap. And one bird find out that if I break that aluminium cap, I can drink the milk from that bottle.
Yeah.
A bird figured it out. And within 1 year time, all birds on the planet were drinking milk from that bottle that was covered with an aluminium cap. So there you see that there must be some kind of radio wave technology emitting from the brain of that first bird who did that all other birds on the planet copied it.
Ananto, you wanted
Yeah.
to weigh in on this.
That's basically the theory of Rupert Sheldrake, the morphogenetic field, which is quite mind-blowing, I think. No, I want to say the saga has such a beautiful and simple explanation on this thing. It says Uden. And there is a saying about Uden. Uden is one ring, and Uden is everything, and Uden is the sun. And the sun will always be, the sun has always been. Uden is everything. And everything that exists in this universe lives in Uden. Uden is the consciousness of the whole thing. Uden is the intelligence of this universe. Uden is the soul of the universe. And it communicates to us through the sun, through the stroller of the sun. From the sun comes the sun rays, and it's not only heat and warmth and light. No, it's intelligence, it's consciousness, it's soul, Phylgia, coming through the sun to us. And they say this Uden has 5 aspects here on Earth. It's the sun, it's the lightning and thunder, lightning, it's the fire, it's the sperm, and it's the gold. These are the 5 aspects of Uden here on Earth. And when you let that sink in, it just fucking makes so much sense. I can see it only. I look at the sun and I say, if there is a God, it's the sun. You know, but I don't like the word God. It's so much fucked up in the languages, and all wars have been made in the name of God and blah blah blah. You know, no, it's Uden, the intelligence, the consciousness, and the soul, and it brings light and information. There is an information coming from the sun, and for me, that to realize that, like when I started to get the saga, it was like bang, of course, no more questions. It's all said. When you really let that sink into your wherever.
Sorry,
Nikola
did you just say
Tesla
gold?
listens to the sun.
And then there is in the saga there are the 29 sounds which have a meaning, and I know German and English, and I see the same, and I know some words of the root because of Eeyore. And I see these associations coming from the sound and from the root words. I see them in the German language, I see them in the English language, and one Italian sees it in Italian, the French sees it in French, the Danish in Danish, the Swedish in Swedish, Norwegian in Norwegian, so on. Yeah, and it's like to approach Bock Saga, it is essential that you learn these 29 sounds and the meaning of them. And like most of the people, like for me, I learned it in between 3 or 4 weeks. I just heard a certain tape of it again and again and again until I just could say Asa, Bebori, Se Shera, Di, Ek, Efrögi, Grund, Hohel. I Asanas Boris. So it's like a rhyme. Or it's like a verse, it's like a song. And when you get that in your brain, this thing starts rolling slowly and slowly and slowly, more and more and more. And I And then it took quite a while. Then I looked in the words and I know these sounds. These are like pictures. You look into a word and suddenly you get 3 or 4, 5 pictures together, and suddenly you see through and you pick up the meaning, and it tells a story. You know? This is the first thing. The second thing are the 8 powers. Hel, Bock, I, Uden, Ra, Tur, Frey, Freya. It tells a story. An amazing story. Yeah. When you realize that as a whole thing, it's fucking mind-blowing what it tells us. Okay, no, I lost it.
Drew, you had a follow-up question for Ananto.
Yeah, Ananto, sorry, just clarifying, I might have misheard you. You said, show figures, sun, lightning, fire, sperm, and was the last one you said gold. As in like
gold.
Metal? So yes, I'm just trying to understand this. The sun I can see as being like relevant for life and things to survive because it creates warmth and allows things to grow. Lightning, yes, because it could generate fire for early man. Fire, cook and prepare foods. Clear forests, all sorts of things you could use fire for. Gold is one that kind of sits outside of that. I can't find a connection there. What's the significance of gold?
It is the symbol of gold is forever. Uden is the symbol of eternity also. The saga says, the saga tells that this, what we see is the sun. It has always been there and it will always be there. Now, this is, of course, when you tell it to astrophysics or astroscientists, he will kick you out immediately. Fuck off.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
The Big Bang and the sun is only 4.5 billion years old. It's one day it's gone. No.
So does gold almost represent the sun as like a physical, eternal thing on the earth?
Yes.
Because everything you make from gold, or gold never changes the way it looks like. It can be millions of years old. It looks the same. On silver, you still have a patina on it, but with gold, gold never changes. It is the only element in the periodical system which will not change at all, and that's why it's the symbol of eternity in the saga, and it represents Uden. And the sperm is the creative force of course. We all come from sperm. Somebody has been.
Oh, one thing in between. One thing in between. Only the human being is born from sperm. Only the human being.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll
in the saga,
that in a bit. I believe Mr. Conrad has a comment / question, has to do with what we're discussing. So Al, thank you for joining, by the way.
Hi guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well. Good.
Okay, great. Yeah, I heard the saga from Jim way back in the 90s, and it's been rattling around in my brain ever since. And what else has been rattling in my brain ever since is my own sperm. And I feel like it's interesting that this whole panel, there's no women. And it's a very male-oriented story because Eeyore is always about the history, and the women's always about the mystery and the future and creating the future and stuff. And I so wish that this could appeal to women out there, and that they could see like there's a power in women coming to see. When I first heard the story, I was living in an intentional community where we were really playing around with sexuality and non-ownership of people and things and being free in our sexuality. But there's a way that it can really be an attractive, appealing thing about women dreaming together the future, and then also really raising children together for real, instead of like, oh, this is my kid and that's your kid, and I'm not going to I'm not going to interrupt your parenting of your child. And it's like and then what we have then is 10,000 years of nuclear family, or whatever, the building up of the nuclear family, and which think is culturally and also maybe evolutionary a dead end, or not really the way we're meant to be. And so I just want to just sort of toss out this idea about moving forward and how to, like, there's a guy on Instagram, Will Bloomhuff, and he's talking about Spartans and tickling other, you can be hetero and like have male bro bonding where you tickle each other's balls and you maybe even drink each other's cum. And I'm trying to tell him, like, bro, you're so close to this thing called the Bock Saga. You're just right, almost there. If you would like, and I'm like, it's almost like culturally we're ready to start really, where men start to skid around in circles and do a sacred circle jerk. You know what I mean? Or an archaic circle jerk, what we would say. And then the women also, we're primed, like culturally primed for an alternative to the nuclear family. And I just want to throw that out there as far as like where this ideology or this thought form is going into the future. And that's just kind of what I'm thinking about. And women actually like saying, okay, well, we're gonna have a climax party, and we're all gonna clear our rees and clear our tours and or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like how can we actually tilt the axis back if that's what we're talking about? How do we go back to paradise in a way? And maybe it's impossible. And maybe the whole point was to separate ourselves from Udin, but there needs to be a return. So that's my thought.
Okay.
I mean, we definitely have a couple ladies joining us in the live chat, at least. So, ladies, please,
shout out to Vicky.
Let's hear your thoughts, because this is quite the statement. Zaralath already telling us that he'll not be circle jerking, unfortunately. Oh, Zaralath, come on, man.
I'd also like to. And Thomas, to answer your question, I think I have like 2 women, maybe 3.
Yeah, I asked in the chat like how many women are in the telegrams for all this, because it does. I'll make a great point. I almost
and shout out to Vicky too, because and not to blow her up there, but like, yeah, she's a very positive contributing person in that group, and she knows a lot about her own culture and other cultures, and she's totally into the Bock Saga. She understands what it means, and there is a whole female side. And Eeyore always said that he wished he knew more about the female side, but that he was mostly told about his own side from his aunt and mother, right?
Wrong. Wait a second.
I'm sorry about that.
Wrong what you're saying.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ananto. My bad.
Yeah.
You started in the beginning telling more the male story.
Okay.
Yeah. And because also there were more males in the saga than females. And it became, I think, in the middle of 1995, 96, he started to go into the female aspect of the saga. And there are some tapes which are very, very mind-blowing. Eeyore held these tapes at the Human University in Holland. That is a therapeutic community. And he was invited by the leader of the community 3 years to present the saga in his community. And these tapes are recorded, at least from 1 year, and I published them on my Telegram channel. These are 12 tapes, altogether 9 hours. And the last 4 tapes of this whole program is nearly only about the female aspect of the saga, the female offering system, the names of the parts of the pussy, and how the girls were dealing with this whole thing. And I found that out pretty late in the time when I made my Telegram channel. I somehow stumbled upon these tapes and I said, fuck, I didn't know. But he was putting it out very clearly to the women, to the woman's side. You go to my channel and check it out. Human University tapes. There is a table of content, and you look at the Human University tapes. And I mean, there are now nearly 3,000 people in my channel over the last 4 years. And I tell you one thing, there are more women who are discussing the saga than men. And the women, they, of course, they see the saga through other side. But to me, and also to the women, they give me this feedback. They say, this story is completely female.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wrong thinking that this is a male story because it's all about sperm and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. The same thing with the sperm is on the women's side. It is exactly the same. It's just called mahla. The same. It is the sacred juice of the women. And the problem is today that there are not so many women who have ever had the experience of squirting. And when a woman squirts, it's big. You look really stupid with a little bit of sperm or 1 spoon. No, when a woman squirts, it's when she can squirt, it's huge.
So is it not a thimble, as I understood it in Carl Borgen's book? It's not a thimble. Is it a full cup?
Well, this cup is maybe
it's a vase.
But when you have ever seen a woman squirting, your bed is wet.
A lot.
You can change the whole.
Maybe the thimble was bigger back then. We are talking about the original Jetta. You know, the original.
She didn't just piss the bed, did she? Jesus Christ.
The women seems to understand this. When I have told, I don't know to how many women that I drink my own sperm and it's good for the brain, and they look at it. Oh, she says that makes sense. Yeah, sure, of course. And they also, women know probably more the power of sperm than we as men know it, because they shows, and the women understand the story different than we, but they are following, and there are more comments from women in my chat than from men.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't mean any disrespect. I thought Eeyore had said that, but it might have been someone else that said that.
Yeah. It was
wanted more info.
The story is the male story in the beginning, but slowly over time, the female aspect became evident. And I have it on tapes.
Yeah, and I've also had a number of conversations with people that have just turned on to the Bock Saga and just, not even telling them myself about any of the female side of it. They're like, this seems like very in line with divine feminine talk. And it's like, they absolutely talk about that,
And also we have one friend of us, one Finnish guy called Sampu. He has been digging into the literature and the mythologies and the religions and the legends of basically all colors on Earth, all countries on Earth, and trying to find evidence on what the saga is saying in one way or another. And he came up with the thing already a few years ago, said all the cultures, all the mythologies show to the north. When in the moment when it comes to where does the knowledge come from? It comes from the north. There has been one country in the north of Europe, or maybe on the North Pole. From there, all culture and all knowledge came to the people on Earth. And he found out another thing. In the mythologies of these, in many mythologies, this country is considered as a very female country. There are more girls living than men. Of course, when you understand the saga, there was Bock and Swan and Ukko and Akka and Ra and Maya, but there were maybe 1,000 Disas. The Disas were the stepmothers for the
ringlands.
Tribes all over the planet. They've been living there. They never came out from Udenmar. They were the ones who were making the kids, bringing them up, and teach them. So took care about the family trees. There were more female women living in Udenmar than men. I figured out. And this is even reflected in the mythologies of the people on Earth. Yeah, and I really can recommend, go to my channel, look for the University tapes, and especially tape 10, 11, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's a complete female song revealed from Eeyore. You can listen to him, to the people in Holland in that time.
How many generations does it encompass? Like from the first ring to current?
Say it again.
Or when he brought it. How many generations does it encompass from like the first people to the edge of the first ring and then on down to current time?
We had 5 classes of people, as I would say. This is called Pirouette, Rousette, Yarlet, Carlet, and Trailet. Pirouette and Rousette were the Asa. They were living in Uudenmaan in Finland. And the Jarl and the structure of all the tribes on Earth had Yarlet, Carlet, and Trailet. And they all had one stamfather, that was the Rabbi. It's called the Rabbi. And the Rabbi came from Uudenmaan. And in this Jarl, Carl, and Trail story, the women were choosing the man from where they wanted to have a child from. It was the choice of the woman always, yeah. Except in the Pirouette and Rousette family, there was one breeder, that was Lemminkainen. He made them all pregnant. And we were a 5-class system, one big family, coming from Uudenmaan, and we were all in a way relatives to them, because the second class could say my father was Lemminkainen. The third class, the Jarls, could say my grandfather is Lemminkainen. The fourth could say my great-great-grandfather is Lemminkainen. And the 5th class could say my great-great-grandfather is Lemminkainen. So that is a kind of system which is a family, a huge family. We were one huge family in this parallel.
Someone in the live chat, and Thomas, I believe that's from your side of things, from your Rumble account, Mythoclast, that Zertis, another well-known podcaster, brought up the Bock Saga song and Genghis Khan, and like how still so many, I believe, like one in very little at least is in some way related to Genghis Khan, and that maybe he does indeed play a part in the Bock Saga, because I mean he went around the block a few times, so to speak.
And Zertis does a great job on bringing awareness to Bock Saga. He's got a whole thing that if someone does like a super chat, he plays a song called Bock Saga, and there's people that I think might not even know what Bock Saga is, but they like the song so much that they'll have him play it over and over, and that in turn inspires people to look it up and look into it. So yeah, it's interesting almost that it's like an entertainment / comedy approach that gets people the most receptive to this. I couldn't imagine sitting someone down in a very serious and somber way and explaining this and never cracking a smile. And if someone else smirks or laughs, you're just like, no, don't laugh. I couldn't imagine this story to ever take hold without some of that jovial, sort of like having a good humor about it.
I mean, we've all been laughing, smiling, and cringing the whole time. So, this has been amazing so far. And I just want to say one thing. Thor, Mr. Librarian, you've been awfully quiet. How about you put in your 2 cents, bro?
Yeah, well, one story that I like in the Bock Saga is the story of the Tor and how I discovered my own Tor. And so, it's like, you look down and there's your heart, and your heart happens to be where your name comes from. And so it got me thinking a little bit, and I'm not scared of myself. I've thrown up on myself, shitted myself, pissed myself. We've all done that type of shit. We've all tasted our blood, whatever. People drink their urine.
Sounds like a regular. Me.
So I had to join the Paul ministry, and no shame. I've told my friends that I don't waste it anymore. I don't throw it away. It's not trash. It's the most important thing there might be on the earth. And I think we all need to take consideration of how important that is and not throw it away, and use that in creating a new sex education for the future and how we plan children consciously. And
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, I got shamed by a friend who put his fist up a woman's butthole, and I'm like, okay, bro, like,
Really good.
sure, like, and I got friends who never even listen to Bock Saga who don't throw it away anymore. So it is what it is.
I have always had that long-standing belief that certain fluids shouldn't just be spilled upon the ground, and not because of any, I couldn't say inset religious predisposition to it, because I never really looked into it that much before I had that moral of, no, if I'm going to spill it, it's going to be on a distinct partner. You know what I mean? Or with a distinct partner. And I can't say I never, as a teenage boy, did the whole, joined the Palm Army, whatnot. But it never was a curiosity thing for me. I was always more in tune to one specific partner.
Look, it is the petrol for the brain. The sperm is the petrol for the brain of the masculine, and the sap or the mahla is the petrol for the brain of the feminine. And that make us to be different, because we need to be different in order to be able to procreate in a natural way. Yeah, so today the accent is so much on same, which holds for many aspects of the life. Of course, we all have to eat, and we all have to drink, and we all have to do whatever we do. So there is many things, but basically, if you take it from a brain perspective, from the brain time, the petrol for the brain is that liquid which the masculine produce in the ball sack and the female produce within their system. And this is the big magic. This make that before, because people understood that everything what we experience on this planet, everything is based on sperm and mahla. Yeah, so it's sperm and egg what you need for making children, but it's sperm and mahla what you need for making the brain function to its optimum capacity. So the more sperm is passing through the brain, which it does only when you drink from yourself. Yeah, otherwise you come in this kind of retention program, but that is second best. The
I
thing of the
actually think that just abstinence would be much better, because if you enjoy yourself, then it goes to the digestive tract and really doesn't take in all the nutrients. I mean, it has nutrients. Like, how else is it going to survive? And all
It's
that.
actually proven that it goes in the brain.
It goes
scientifically.
to the brain.
Where was that being proven? That's a pretty bold claim, and this is somewhat of a joke, but if it's the fuel of the brain, the petrol of the brain, surely then the gay community would be Einsteins at this point, wouldn't you agree?
If you go to the, let's say, in our time, the gay have become confused because the gay want to live like the heterosexual. But before, only 80 years ago, we had a gay community who couldn't voice themselves that they were part of a gay community. And now if you go to look in that gay community from the 1940s, 1930s, 1920s, 1910s, then you are coming to the amazing thing that many of our theater people who make plays, many of our film producing people, many of our artistic people, many of these people who have been furthering the course of all cultural aspects of life, they were almost all gay people who, of course, in that time, they was drinking, or they could drink from each other, because that was a natural thing to do within that gay community. But in our time, the gay community become completely different oriented because they are copying the heterosexual life, which created all kind of enormous confusion on this planet, which is advertised by all porno channel that exist on the globe. Yeah. Where they
But
all
Gentlemen,
wouldn't that basically just be monkey behavior again? You know, monkey see, monkey do.
of course.
really quick,
That's-
gentlemen, I got to
that's not
sign
a-
off.
To it. Let me add something to that.
No, hold on,
Wait.
because Ananto, what? Ein Moment. Josh, you have to run off your budget.
Yeah,
So
I'm going to go real quick, but I'm going to leave you guys with a Bock Saga joke, and I'm going to feed my wife a double doctorate afterwards. I'll see you later.
hell yeah, been great having you, man. Peace out.
Let me add something to what Michelle said also. There is, it's sperm and mahala. There is not only the material aspect of the thing. It is, of course, it is made out of certain fluids, and some sperm is pretty much scientifically researched. Mahala, I have not found one single scientific research on mahala yet. And I've checked it through in my channel. There are women who are biochemists, and she checked out the whole scientific what has been published, and she couldn't find a serious research on this stuff called mahala
Correct.
until today.
I
Let's
think
wait.
Brandy in the live chat makes a good point, that I'm pretty sure that most women will kiss their partner directly after him coming up from having brunch, her still on his face. On the other hand, how many, like, since the whole panel is one big sausage fest, how many of us will do like the same but in reverse when she still has us in her mouth? How many of us?
It's
will
called a
actually-
snowball. It has a proper name. Let's call it by its name.
Right? It's been like novel, like it's become a novelty. It's become a joke in Western society, right? It's already like a thing to not do. And I agree, like as a Western modern man, it's like, ew. It's so lame. I admit, in the midst of all this history possibly being true, it's like, well, I mean, what the hell right do I have to be so grossed out by my own creative fluid? You know what I mean? But it's, where did that come from? I mean, that's not something I learned in my own self. That's something that I acquired through growing up in Western society. I can't pinpoint where, but it's definitely in me, where it's like, ugh, you know. And why is that? Where the women don't have that affliction.
I met so many men who are disgusted about the idea to drink their own sperm.
And I admit it's silly that I am disgusted, but I admit it's a silly contemporary thing. You know?
I had so many really heavy fights with men. They were reacting very heavy on the idea to drink their own sperm. And I said, why? Yeah, it's for the women. Okay, did you ever have tasted it yourself? No, I would never do that. It's disgusting. What do you mean? You love a woman and you want her to suck your dick? Of course. And then spits into it, and swallow. That's sure. Oh, you give something to your woman what you actually have never tried yourself. And they will go like, wow, heavy reactions on it. Heavy. But that's not what I wanted to say. There is an energetic aspect on the sperm and mahala story, and this is indicated in the saga by the letter R. Ra. R is Ra, and R is E and R. And the sperma is the R, esperma, and the saga and E is the Enrique is the whole plant system on Earth. It's the stuff where the Mahala comes from. The Mahala is not only coming from the pussy, the Mahala is in the plants, where you make
And the
tea
trees.
from, yeah,
And the
and where
trees.
you make whatever. When you make a tea, the Mahala is the concentrated sunlight in the plants that you put in the water and make tea from, for example. And then the man drinks it also, the woman drinks it, but in the female system, this Mahala, it's like the essence of the essence, the Mahala essence coming out through their vagina, clitoris, in the moment of orgasm. So this is and that's an energetical aspect. And in my understanding, after all the years, it's like the life energy itself. That's the letter R in the saga. And it's in the sperma and in the mahla. And that's why they say you don't throw away your sperm, you throw away your life energy. And with life energy, I mean, that's what they call prana, chi, organ, ether, and things like that. We are made out of life energy. It's all around us. It's in us.
That sounds like a purring pussy. Arr, you know what I mean?
Hey, I just wanted to.
Magic sound. The air is in the air. Love is in the air.
By the way, there are at least three Europeans here on this this panel. We're not always naked, and we don't always slap each other's ass. And some of us are every day. So, but I mean, it seems to be how many of us Europeans are viewed.
So there's the power of. Go ahead.
Let me finish my story.
Yep.
I came upon. I read it in a Christian magazine, or I don't know, in a Christian text. That actually, in the Christian context, they say you shouldn't throw your sperm. That means don't wank. Don't wank. Why? Yeah, because the sperm is sacred. It comes from God. Aha. Also, that's why I shouldn't wank. Okay. You should make children with it. The sperm is made to make children. So they tell people one right thing, the sperm is sacred, but they don't tell the people, well, you can eat it, you can drink it, you know. That's the thing that they were cutting off. They're only informing people of make children and as much as you can and spread it all over the world and blah, 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 blah. But they think in the essence as the sperm is something sacred that shouldn't be spilled. But it's Christian bullshit.
That's not the body of Christ.
Maybe even that. Yeah, that's what I think.
I was gonna interject earlier about the power of dreaming together, and then what about the power of orgasming together, and the function of the orgasm. And Wilhelm Reich, I'm sure you're familiar, German fellow.
Fantastic.
And the healing power of the orgasm, and maybe there's something to do with a bunch of people all coming together, and what energy field you can create. And I'm just circling back into the porn society and how millions of people are just throwing away their seed every day and giving it to some sort of electronic energy system, for all we know. So
the Buddhists made a whole Tantra.
I'd also like. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, Andy. Go ahead, man.
I'd also like to add that, the porn idea. It's like we can all, like, in the conspiracy theory world at large, even though we agree and disagree on different things, we all agree that it's dehumanizing. Whatever's running the show is extremely dehumanizing. And, what better essence through the porn industry to throw it all away if it is the ultimate, which it is, the ultimate life essence. It's a clown in the show. It's the ultimate, it's it means absolutely nothing in that industry, and it's perpetuated onto our entire society. So it just makes sense.
It has to do with, you just said crystallization, yeah, and you talk about the body of Christ. And Christ in European language we call Christ. And Christ is a 5-letter combination of a word that everybody knows, and that is crystal. So when you talk about crystallization, you are talking about the essence of the human being. And this crystallization gets formed on the masculine side through orgasm, and on the female side through climax, or climax, as you say in English.
The
So
Christos
the-
oil.
the ladies have climax, and we have orgasm. So that is today also a word which is confused between the sexes. Yeah, because today ladies have also orgasm, but that's not true. Lady have climax because they have to clee to the max in order to take out from their vagina this liquid that they can
Quick
drink.
question for Michelle.
Yep. Do
Go
it.
ahead, Rob.
Quick question for Michelle. Just that you
Go
talk
ahead,
about
Rob.
orgasm there. The middle syllable. The middle syllable in that word, Michelle, is gas. Is that the same as casse, as in testicles, but the balls?
I don't get it now. 1 second. The gas you talk about?
So,
Or gas.
yeah,
Or-
the second
or-
syllable is orgasm. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard you talking about the balls as casse.
Yes.
So is that the same? Is it referring to? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I think so. I think there the confusion
all I
starts,
wanted to know.
yeah, it's when you use the wrong association to something what can have another meaning also, and there it comes the misunderstanding. Everybody know the story from the guy who become bitten by one shark between his legs. In the same second, your voice is changing. So that's also happening with castration. Yeah, with castration, you lose the connection of that sperm energy to the brain, what make that your voice become more female, so that you can make high tones, and that is again interesting in some choir, in
Yeah,
different
I was going to say,
religions.
and they used to do that to the choir boys so that
Yes,
they
where
cast their light, angelic voices.
Yeah, correct. So that is all kind of things that are consequences of one misunderstanding. Yeah. Yeah, because who the hell would want to have his balls cut off so that he can sing with a high voice? Maybe if, today in the money wheel system, if you get money for it, so maybe.
I mean, I know, and Drew, you as Catholic, like you can probably tell this better, but I know that in certain sects of Christianity, at least way back in the day, there a part of the Bible was misunderstood about like removing the thing that like causes you the most problems. So man just started chopping off their bits.
I'm not a Catholic. I'm born again, but
yeah, okay.
yeah. I think a lot of the denominations have kind of got it wrong, and that's kind of been the weaponized part of religion that I go pretty hard on Christians about. But I'm just going to point one small thing out, and I understand how like the sexual, spiritual energy, fluids type of thing is a big part of Bock Saga. But coming from a somewhat normie perspective, air quotes, this is the stuff that really turns people away when I think it has a lot of really great aspects to it, historically and language based, that could draw people in. And we've been talking about the sex and the icky side of stuff for 2 hours now.
Well,
You're right. Yeah, and I've wanted to do the same, man. I wanted...
on Bock Saga and mentioning not one time the sperm and Mahala thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I would lie to people if I
can
do it like
we
this.
can change to a different subject within the saga. Like it's been like a good 30-45 minutes of just R-rated.
I think it needed to be addressed. Like this was the part most controversial that kind of needed to be talked about, at least not normalized, but at least
what it's all
discussed. in an educational way. But yeah, I would
It
second
would-
that or third that
We
the
haven't even
historical aspect is, my God, it's the most important part because it's partially or most likely the way that we could at least, suggest
No,
that these people existed and these things happened.
I think
Michel,
we try to discuss it in a quite beautiful way, showing from different brains, different aspects, or how you relate to it, and we are different ages from different periods with different norms, and we have also in a large part to accept the norms that we live in, but in the same time we got the freedom to criticize without to kill the other one. It's nothing to take away from anybody. This is a story that should add to our life so that we could start to look at things in one different way in order to solve all these different problems that we are experiencing just in this moment all over the planet. Yeah, there is an enormous drop in the virility of people because of all kinds of reasons. There's a lot of people having problems making children. There is a lot of aspects that are really a big part of the emotional life of many people. Yeah, and I think with simple information we could alleviate all this kind of misery and problem and going endlessly to the doctor to find out what is wrong with me. Because you only go to the doctor when you feel there is something wrong with me. You don't go there when you feel it's something right with me. Then you go to your friends. Yeah. So I find that we discuss this quite nicely, even when we take many hours to do it. But we can go on for 24 hours more on the same subject. And
for sure.
also
But
we
like,
can drop it. We can drop
was-
it. We can
it
go
was
on
this
for 8
topic,
and
and it was worse.
on other aspects of the story.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think-
it were these kind of questions that got Thomas into hot water and what made.
For the record, I'm not voting we move on. I don't see how we could move on. Again, this is the crux of the entire saga. So to then say, okay, we're now gonna stop talking about semen and move and talk about this. To me, that makes absolutely no sense. It would be like in math class, you're saying, okay, we've done addition and multiplication, we've done numbers. Let's not talk about numbers anymore. Let's talk about geometry, but don't talk about numbers. Doesn't make sense.
We can stay on it. That's totally fine. I mean, if you have any,
I'm curious though. Is there a way that you truly can move away from it and not have to refer back to it?
No, it would be like to live on a planet without oxygen. Yeah, so you can't live on a planet without oxygen, and it's the same for Bock Saga. You can't live without the fact. It's the fact that we are born from sperm that goes in one egg and creates, if you are born under completely natural circumstances and completely what according to them is natural behavior, so that has to do with how you deal with yourself, that you can create people that are in time can become 100% perfect, like we should be. And today there is not one family existing where there is not any misery relating to health or psychology or I don't know what kind of story. Fortunately, a lot of us are still quite okay. But you can't be without to realize that in everybody's family there are people who in that regard are pissing neck to the pot because they are missing one gene of this or one gene of that, or have experiences and traumatic happenings that make them to be the way they are. And we try to become free from that. And to become free from that, you have to understand where you come from. And if we can't talk about that because the religion or whatever philosophy has been putting one layer over that from, hey, we can talk about anything, but we don't touch where we come from. Yeah. Now, the funny thing of this Bock Saga is that it does exactly the other way around as what normally historical people are doing when they are investigating history. They are going out from their norms and their understanding in this time where they live, and from there they go and look backward. And now Bock Saga gives us for the first time the possibility, or not for the first time, there's other people who have tried to start with the first people on the planet and give us an explanation. But as
Yeah, it
we
always ends in ancient
aware,
aliens.
yeah, as we are aware, there is big discussion about whether the story of Lakshman and Saraswati is more old than the story of Adam and Eve or the story of Apollo and Artemis. And now we are coming with Frey and Freya. Now, for me personally, I don't give a shit where the first people on the planet are born. But when they are born in hell, and there is a totally logic story backing it up, because the meaning of hell is light, completion. It's not negative, it's positive. And okay, today on the North Pole you freeze your balls off, but when it was situated in Finland, hey, we were living in a tropical, subtropical paradise where the nature invited us in, and we could enjoy the nature in order to procreate and live forever. But that means that we are bound by certain, let's say, rule and regulation regarding our origin. Yeah, so with Bock Saga, we start from the beginning. We start with the creation of the planet. We start with the creation of life in the ocean. We start with how the life moved on the land. And we start how we get all this nature and all this animal in this nature, where after a long evolution, we come out in one moment when the world was ready to receive us. And we could live here according to the way of thinking from the past, which finished from this family we call Bock family, that finishes in our time. So in a way, we all become, how you call these people who have no parents anymore? We
Orphans?
become,
Orphans.
yeah, sorry.
Orphans.
Yeah, we become like orphans. And in all this kind of word, there are so many meaning inside. We can't negate the meanings because they tell us many, 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 many things if we are willing to take it in, you know. But then there are a couple of nuts all of us have to chew on. No? There are some nuts in this story that are like, sounds pretty outrageous, pretty crazy. But if you start to think about it and you are going out from one world that was completely different than the world we are living in today, then we can also allow for a total different look at things and clear up the mist. You know, let's get clarity. Yeah, let's,
I think
Thomas,
to what Paranoid said though, how long do you spend talking about guys drinking their own cum and
whole time.
circle jerking? Because it's literally quite the low hanging fruit or the low hanging testicles of this. When you've got better things to talk about, that yes, it's a part of it, but is it the be all and end all of Bock Saga?
Well, no, but to Thomas's credit, like he's pointing out that it is the central aspect of the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
But the problem with just like staying on the topic of that the whole time and not referencing why it's even plausible that this culture existed. I don't know. I feel like talking about the possible parallels in history to, you know, the audience, God forgive me, if someone's here listening about the Bock Saga for the very first time, you know, let's give them a reason to fucking even look at it. You know, I mean, otherwise
Why,
it's
though?
just a cult
Why?
about semen.
Why does it matter that someone listening would have to be inspired to look into it if they weren't just inherently inspired? It feels like a weird job, like a weird role to take on, that it's like I need to make sure that I present this in a way that people in the general public are going to be receptive to it. I almost want to lean against that. And the whole reason I even found myself in this weird hot spot, I guess, where people don't even want to come and talk on this panel because I was here and the questions I was asking, like the ironic part to me is that at no point was I ever like, oh, this is gross, or like I don't believe this because of all the gross stuff. Like my mind went, like, I'll give you the most practical question that I would like to have maybe resolved on the next one. We don't have to go into this tangent, but how do you prevent all these but I would imagine hypersexualized people, the people that are like, they know that the entire culture revolves around orgasming and sexual fluids. How do you make sure that, you know, two teenagers don't go off and bang in the dark one night and just throw the entire system off the rails? It's almost presented as though like the Christians came or these outside cultures came, but how do you realistically in the entire, you know, group that everyone's living in, if like, you know, two teenagers make eyes at each other and they sneak off in the night, or does that sexual urge just not exist at all for 50 million years?
This is no,
The
no,
sex-
that can't be, you know, that
question.
can't be, because this, I think, is something that has always been happening. But based on the information people had, they could handle that within the natural parameters that they had been getting from their peers, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, their great-great-grandparents, and they were living in communities. So you can't escape in a community. Today we are living in our private bedroom. You know, that's something new that first came 1870 from Paris. Yeah.
Dude, it's the counterculture. There was no counterculture telling you like disobey your parents.
For 50 million years, no one rebelled against their
Well,
parents. That to
No,
me,
but not in
that
this
is
way.
more far-fetched than the goat and the monkey, honestly.
Guys,
Hold on. I would
believe
say that
Al wants to weigh in on
I would
this. Let's give him a
yeah, I
chance.
would say that every people's sexual desires were satisfied in the paradise time. From my hearing of the story, you'd have your tour friend, and your tour friend would satisfy, and it's like there was a different. I think it was a different like attitude. Like only if I got selected in Carnival would I actually get to even look at a pussy. You know, like the inside of a pussy. It's like. And so you would try to be strong and masculine and win win on the pedestal, but it's a different mental mindset of a modern mindset about sex and how everyone wants to get their dick wet. But if you look at it for 200 million years ago, it's a different attitude towards sex.
That's a good point. Yeah, who knows?
That was basically
that is difficult to understand for us who are born after the Second World War, and we were confronted with the sexual revolution, and that was something that you could talk about since 1960s. Before 1960s, you couldn't talk about this thing with anybody in your own family. Man, you get the priest after your ass, and you were really in for a lot of bad shit from the community you live or grow up in. So we have to learn to accept we have been completely different, and we can't take responsibility for anybody who can get most of them get their information from the porno channel today. Now if we can provide a little bit historical background,
Michelle, I love your information. I love your stories, but let's give someone else a chance to weigh in.
Sure.
Okay.
Ananto,
the way I see it, that we have in the saga, it starts with Frey and Freya, and it tells in a big detailed story how we live together in paradise time. And we have the breeding system on one hand, how we made children, and we had the offering system on the other hand. And that is the most important story in the saga, the offering system, to understand that. It took me quite some years to really... Actually, when I came to the saga, he hasn't been told anything about the offering system, how it works. It was told after 95, 96, 97. And then the whole thing made click. I don't know. I don't want to. I can't go deep into the offering system because it's so huge. And the end of the paradise system, we have a story from Adam and Eve. This was the end of the offering system, and there was a rebellion against. There was a kind of rebellion going on in paradise time. People wanted to try something new, and then we were kicked out of paradise somehow. I don't know.
Drew, in the private chat, you came with a great great question. Ask away. I mean, it's your question.
So this kind of just flows on a little bit from what Paranoid said. The whole idea of it, if we go into the time frame that Bock Saga presents, 50 million odd years. This is just what I think would be an average question of the normal person out there. How are we sure that a oral language has remained the same for 50 million years? We have a phrase or a terminology today called Chinese whispers. A saying or a phrase or something changes over time. Words' meaning change over time. How do we know that it's remained unchanged for all that time? Because at this point, you'd have to have a level of faith in it that it's the same, because we don't know for certain. We're not the people from 50 million years ago when the language started, are we? So that's where I kind of pose it. It's a level of faith and belief that the language hasn't changed.
Yeah, but I can answer that very simple. The thing is that this story, it offers material proof. And to get out of this dilemma, what you just described, that we are all living with that, because we have at the moment only one story, because we have not been able to show anything. What the story is promising us should be there. Now that sounds so outrageous. Yeah, it is like something, out of, I don't know what you would call it. Yeah, but it would be like the most enlightening experience for people who don't trust in the story. And through everything what has come out of this story in the last 40 years, I have been doing my best to find the hole in the story. My really very best, you have been going and discussing with people all over the globe about any subject. And there is nobody been able to punch one hole in our story. And then you come to this point, but then it's all a question of fate. But that is cancelled out by the fact that we can show what the story shows is there at the moment hidden within the interior of the earth. And those are the Bock family treasure chambers. So what do you think for an input would such a story have when it's actually visible and everybody can watch it in the TV? Yeah. I mean, that would be like the ultimate egg on top, I call it. Yeah. It's
Actually,
really on top.
Actually, the plan from Eo's mother, Rhea, was that first the golden bock in Kayani and the 2 golden bocks in Offerlund should come to the surface. That should happen in 1984. And this was this was stopped and torpedoed by many people in Finland. It was refused from the very, very beginning that Eo had a chance to say, look, here is the evidence, and then I tell you the story for it. It was not possible to reach it. And then Eo had a problem. He had to tell the saga without having the physical proof for it. And nobody would fucking listen to him in Finland. Nobody. They were all think this guy is crazy. This guy is a fucking, I don't know, satanic, maniac, crazy man, And so there were not many people who were listening to him, except a few hippies in Goa, who thought, well, that's a great story, And that is the problem until today. We have proof. We know where the golden bock in Kayani is living. We know it exactly. It has been shown on radar. But until today, the Museumwerket in Helsinki have done everything not to dig up this thing. It's absolutely, to me, I was the first, going back in 1990, who thought, let's go to Kayani. Let's try to find where the thing lies. And we found it. We found it exactly the point. And some other teams after me came, 3 more teams. They confirmed it and confirmed it and confirmed it. And still, the Finnish government and the Finnish museum would refuse to dig a 5 or 6 or 7 meter deep hole into the Kayani castle and take it out.
But then why not do it yourself? Like if it's that important, if it means that much to you, why rely on the government? Why rely on some official institution? Get a group together.
Because when you
do it
go
yourself.
there, because when you go there and try to do it yourself, you end up in jail. Very simple. There were people trying to do it. You must imagine, Kayani is on the polar circle. You have half a year nearly only day and half a year only dark. So when you go in the daytime, this castle lies in the middle of the town. So whoever comes there with a shovel or wants to dig out something, he immediately will be stopped by the police. Now you can say, oh, okay, you can go in the winter when it's dark. But in the winter, it's minus 20 degrees and the whole earth is frozen 50 centimeters deep. So you
That's
don't get
why
anywhere.
I said get a group together. Like if I just, look around the Telegram groups or like a little bit on YouTube, like it seems
we
you
did
enough
all that.
people
We
to
did
get a
all that,
group
but
together.
we get so much
There was a
negative publicity that everybody know about this. There's also the people who support us. The local people in Kayani, they even made one demonstration with one huge straw bock going through the main street of the town. This castle is lying on one small island in the middle of the river that goes straight through this town, which is there near the polar circle. Hey, they even have been, when we went illegally there to dig, we tried, and they came back with one cement wagon and they put one enormous, massive block of cement over that place under which is buried one lead box with this golden bock inside. And we have proof that it is there, but they covered it with a big piece of concrete, Now the next problem, this
So
book.
if it is quite obvious that whatever official institution is not working with you, like maybe this is just a generational difference. Maybe it's the times that I grew up in, that I am growing up in, growing into a man. Like we like at least like my generation, like kind of like Andy, Drew, Thomas, like our generation, we have learned quite fast that you don't trust the government, you don't trust the official institutions. If you want to have something done, you do it yourself. So maybe this is just a generational difference talking, but I'm thinking if the government is really working against you and like quite literally covering it up, you get a crew together and you do that shit yourself. If it's that important to you, or like you could just, I know Michelle and Ananto, you're of age, so but like you could be the ringleaders. You have the knowledge. You know the stories. You could.
And to your benefit, I think what you're trying to communicate is that if the physical proof is there to make it completely unquestionable and it proves Bock Saga, you got the physical, tangible thing to back up the story, that'd be the equivalent of Christians knowing where the Ark of the Covenant is being kept, but for whatever reason, it's not being out to the public. Like if I had the ability to find the Ark of the Covenant and use it to prove Christianity and
where
have it really true, I'd be doing it. Like that's I think
Bro,
I'm
a heathen and I would do that. I'm a pagan, and if I can find like the Holy Grail or whatever ark or whatever like religious ark,
that's undermining faith in
I
Christian
know where it
religion.
is, I'm gonna find that shit.
That's one of the things that I do like about the Bock Saga, and that Christianity, the second you start hinting towards physical proof or ways to prove, proof undermines faith. So you can't really prove and still believe the same way. But Bock Saga, you can say there's physical proof there and we want to reveal it. And there's no such thing as undermining the faith that exists in almost every other religion that I've been exposed to.
Correct. And now you have to think again about this one consciousness. Yeah. That, hey, if this is a story which is coming out of something called consciousness within the universe, and now the consciousness has been creating something called the planet with everything that lives on it. And we have this blue fantastic ball, which is beautiful, and it contains us, and we try to keep it in order. Yeah. But now the time at the end of the paradise time make that we end up in ice time. So we get a period of 50 million years to think about that what has been happening. Yeah. Now there is one family, only one family who kept the meaning of the sound. They were not available in the distribution of information in the paradise time. So it is this one family, which before consisted of one papa and one mama with minimum 12 sons and 7 daughters. They are the ones who kept the sounds and the meaning which they transferred from generation on generation on generation, just like you are doing in any normal family anywhere on the planet. But now this family was the family that started the whole program. So for them, they had a reason why they didn't give out the meaning of the sound. And because they didn't give it out, it created the history as we have had it. And now we are at one time where we are coming to the second globalization. Globalization was something that we had before Einstein, when we was complete human being living according to one reproductive system that kept us in order, but based on the sound system and the meaning of the sound of this one family who kept that story and orally transferred it from generation on generation. Now, normally, I agree with you that if I start to make that in one ring of people and I start with a glow lamp, we end up with a computer because it will be misinterpreted along the way. But for this family, there was absolutely no reason to change that language with which they were born. They were born with that language and they understood and could implement all kinds of activity based on that language they were born with. They only had to pass it on. So we have always been orally transferring things which created our history. And just now we are entering the second globalization. Everybody hates it as the pox because it's based on money willpower and not on intelligence. Because our intelligence is limited because of the lack of knowledge that we hold. And now we are at that time, we are really at one point in the time where we as human beings can decide by ourselves whether we want to continue or whether we are going to die out. Yeah, we have all kinds of nutcakes sitting with their finger on the red button, and you don't know which one is going to be the first one to press that button. But maybe we can also solve that problem. And maybe this universal consciousness can aid us in that. You know, if there are people of faith, as they call it, why not have the faith that maybe existence is preventing us just at this moment, a critical moment in the history, that we in our time could experience something that could let us go on forever. No, I mean, that's a pretty good Father Christmas present, I would say.
Cheers.
Yeah, so I mean, that is the shortest way I can make Bock Saga. Now, of course, we can fill in the detail, but it takes 20 years. You know, it's like I've been listening almost 27 years.
That's my favorite joke to go to. Is it like we could understand the rest of it, but do you have 20 years and you're not allowed to ask questions?
Huh? Sorry, I didn't get the
part of the aspect is that Eeyore Bock, right, for 20 years as he learns from his mom and his aunt. But in Carl Borgen's book, he makes it very explicit that Eeyore Bock is not allowed to ask questions during these sessions. It's just nonstop information dump.
Yes, okay. I think that we should take that with a little bit piece of salt, in the sense that he had also to be informed about the fact how people around him were living according to their understanding. And in order to understand the people around him, he had also to live just like us. So Eeyore, he has also been having a girlfriend in his younger year, couples even. I know them. So for me, it was also a magic that one day, when he had the right to tell the story in exactly the same time, because of all kinds of happening that occurred, kind of naturally his relation with this lady dissolved, and he became free, and he knew from that moment that he is not putting his sperm anymore in any pussy when it can come one child from that, and that he prevented in his younger years because he was forced, or not forced, but he was told by his mother and his sister that if you are wanting to do this kind of children making exercise with one lady, then use one condom so you can drink your sperm when you finish, when you have been having your orgasm. So in that way, he was kind of very liberal from the, let's say, traditional view of his family, you know. Yeah.
Every time I've done that, I haven't gotten a second date.
Sorry?
Every time I've done that, I haven't gotten a follow-up date.
You know, we are all different. Yeah. And we are living in different circumstances. So his circumstances were quite fantastic because there is this two lady, and I never met them, but one I have been speaking over the telephone, and from what I get from his brain, they was very free people. He was very free, you know. They could show themselves. Yeah, he knew where the clitoris was and how it looked and all this kind of thing because his sister showed him, no? Only thing was that his sister was quite a lot older than he was because he is from 1942 and his older sister was from 1888. So he has been looking at older pussy in the explanation of the different parts of those subjects. So he was educated like that, and he was educated with the language, and he was educated with the sound system. It was just that he couldn't share it with anybody.
That's another thing that seems to be brought up often. I'll get to you in a bit. Is the massive amounts of inbreeding, like to the point that, like, you could say even the Habsburgs would get jealous of it.
Yeah, in our time, we have been misunderstanding the inbreeding because the system of the Paradise time basically is based on inbreeding. Yeah, it was incest from the beginning, but now they made one system in order to create one family that could go on as long as it went on. And it was a global family. So we was all brother and sister and aunt and uncle and cousin and small cousin and susling, pusling, bruling, all the different terminology they had for all the relatives in this different caste system. So it's enormous. It's in one way very complicated, but at the same time, it's very easy because it worked. Yeah, so because it worked, they must have understood what they were doing. It was not one experiment like we are living today. All of our culture all over the planet of today is an experiment. And that experiment has brought us now to 2024. And, you know, we are daily receiving our fair share of disaster movies from all the different corners of the planet. So it's about time that we get out of that. Yeah, and start to use our senses. Yeah, because we have lost our senses because we throw them in the toilet every second day. But it doesn't matter, you know, we don't have to take it so serious. It has just been happening. So it is, I see it like one opera or one operette, you know, and you can laugh along the way because you have not to take yourself that serious, you know. But Bock Saga in itself and Eeyore's family, man, they are comical people. They were full of humor, these people. They could make humor about our story in exactly the same way as we can make humor on it. Because when you talk about understanding, it must have something to do with that what is standing under, you know. And you can joke from the morning to the evening with all these kind of phrases that are coming out in the open because you are just using your language. You know, all
Michel,
these
I believe Al has something to say. He wants to
Well,
weigh
yeah,
in.
I just think it's kind of funny, ironic that Eeyore's sister is also his aunt, and because his brother died so long ago, and it's ironic or maybe coincidental that the beginning of the Bock Saga starts with an incest story, and the end of the Bock Saga also includes this incest story, and it's just kind of, and it's, I would imagine it'd be very embarrassing because of the tab for Eeyore to, you know, include that part of his history or whatever. It's just lends to credibility, in my opinion. Embarrassing information like that, that taboo breaking or acknowledgement of the taboo, and maybe it's you didn't get the second date for not how you ended your first date, but how you performed during your first date.
I mean,
But how he was born, you know, like
I
in
wanted
in the autumn of 1984. So of course I know very few people who.
I'm just gonna leave Michel on mute. Like he's not gonna stop talking. Thor, go ahead.
The word taboo, I recall coming from tabouret, which was some sort of offering stool. Could you break that down?
Yeah. There is in the church still, we use the tabouret, and that is that thing which you can go on with your knees when you are praying. So you put your knees on one low stool type of thing, and you make your whatever you make there. Yeah, and this,
I know what you mean.
it's like one very small pal, which is called tabouret. Now, taboo is obvious, taboo. And it's not really obvious because we have one association to taboo. But taboo in the sound system is you take from Oden's body. And Oden's body is at the top of your prick head, where is the third eye from where sperm comes. So when you taboo, you take from yourself, and that is one red. And one red is like one dish. So you have a meal consisting of different dish, and these different dishes you call red. And that's the same word which we use in the justice system also. So there is like many association trip there in that thing they were performing there, yeah, for other people, yeah, which was all leading up in the offering system to the good, to Uko and to Akka on the female side. So it is basically one offering stool, one tabouret, one lower one. Yeah.
Hey, I gotta get out of here, guys, and I appreciate your time. And this was awesome. And I wish I could stick around longer. I wish we could have covered some of the history aspects. I know it's not as important as the offering system, but you know.
Well, I wanted to submit that we maybe like we start wrapping this up and focus on something other than the offering system and set up like a volume 2 of this, because like I've got so many more questions. So many.
Yeah, there's a lot more to go. I
That's
feel like Thomas had a lot more questions initially. And,
honestly, the main goal of this one was to just figure out, you know, would Eeyore Bock approve of people making jokes and fun and laughing and spreading this in a non-serious way? And unless I've misinterpreted any of this, like, no, Eeyore Bock had a great sense of humor. They made jokes about it themselves. Everyone was very funny and jovial about it, and there was never like, don't talk about this part because it'll scare people away. So that was the impression that I was getting from the outside world. But getting in information from the insiders, I almost feel vindicated in having a good time talking about the Bock
Very
Saga.
good. Very nice.
Thomas.
No, it's really nice that you say that, and I can really support that. You know what there is many people who has been listening 2 years to the story, and then they thought they knew it all. So they packed their suitcase and pissed off and started to create confusion in different parts of the planet, which I feel is almost like a symbolic thing of that which is actually happening all over the planet. People run away with one story, and out of that come into existence cultures and happenings and festivals, and I have no idea what we crazy people can all think up of. Yeah, and look at us, you know. Hey, we are regular guys, and we just happen to have the thing that in our life we are confronted with funny stories with which we like to continue, because we can have so much fun, man. We can have more fun than we can think, you know. Yeah, especially when there is that one happening that says, hey, you know, the universal conscience comes to the conclusion that, hey, enough is enough, you know. Now I stuff this thing in front of their nose, and then they can fight about that, you know. Yeah, but in the same time, then we have closed the big hole, the big black hole of history, because we have an enormous big black hole of history. Yeah, that is the big black hole everybody wants to solve, you know. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
I should shut up, otherwise I talk too much.
So since Andy has to leave, Thomas has to leave, and unfortunately Drew also has to leave, I think this is a very good spot to wrap it up for now. Andy, thank you so much for coming on. Thomas, thank you so much for asking all those questions and like actually coming on the round table. It's been amazing. So I mean, like, thank you to everyone, of course, who is here, who's been here. Thank you to everyone who came into the live chat. Thank you to everyone who's been watching on Thomas's his channels. I mean, let's all give our final words, plug your stuff, and let's get out of here. So, Andy, let's start with you. Final words, plug your stuff.
Yeah, this was great, man. I think it was excellent. And honestly, like since I've been confronted by the Bock Saga, like I came to it and it gave me some revelations, because I was always into ancient aliens and things like that. And this was something that came to me when I was starting to question that and starting to realize that it was probably humanity all by ourselves that had, most of what was going on in history. So it hit me like a ton of bricks, and this has been a great chat to get into all these things. And from day one, I've been asking for more eyes on the topic so we can ask skeptical questions. And so I really appreciate Thomas's skepticism and all the questions he's brought to the table in a meaningful way. And I think it's like Rob said in the chat, it's just scratching the surface. So I think we should do probably another chat again soon. But yeah, thank you very much for having us.
You're most welcome, Andy, and thank you for bringing this to my attention. Really, I think I believe you're the reason why I really found Bock Saga and eventually the Telegram group. Dustin did 3 shows, now a roundtable, with many more things to discuss. So thank you very much, and for everyone watching, everyone listening, everyone in the live chat, don't forget to check out Andy, his show, The Deep Share. Always amazing stuff, amazing guests, amazing episodes. So yeah, thank you very much.
Can I say one more thing?
Ananto, ja, natürlich.
Natürlich, der spricht ja Deutsch.
Ein bisschen.
No, I'd like to point out something. I got into the saga through Jimmy, 1989. Then I was really getting on a fucking trip for the next 2 years, and I tried everybody convinced me around me about Bock Saga and drink your own sperm. And I didn't realize that people were running away because I got so fanatic about it that I was really a pain in the ass to be with, And then, I got silent. And I was around 1995. I took the whole saga and threw it out of my life. Fuck it. I'm a fucking heterosexual and, things like that. Because my heterosexual self-image collided with the saga in a certain way. And then I said, okay, get the fuck all the gurus out, all the box out, and I do my own thing, and I want to party. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So it took me a few years to come back to India and meet your Bock back in 1999. And he looked at me and said, man, where have you been all these years? I said, I had some problems with you and the saga. But he said, well, but you're part of the story. And I looked at him. What do you mean? Yeah, we've been missing you. I couldn't believe it. So I sat down and started to listen in again. And then I realized in that point, he hasn't been talking about the offering system. And only with the offering system, the whole saga made sense. It made total sense. And then I started to be there again and listen to him. And it was, I think it was in 2001, when he, after his first attentat, when he really went into the details of the saga again. And at a certain point, I looked at the guy and I had the feeling I saw the first time this huge picture that he was trying to paint. And when I saw it, I looked at him and said, fuck, I thought to myself, fuck, you're on Mission Impossible here. How possibly to tell that to somebody? It took me fucking 12 years to realize what he was really talking about. Okay, and when I realized that, I was sitting there with ears like that and listening. I even bought a camera and I made some videos with him from Finland and Goa. It's all in my channel. And then he died.
Yeah.
And wait. It's very short. And we were sitting there and discussing the whole thing. At a certain point, I realized, okay, now I am on Mission Impossible. I have to tell that to somebody, and it took me 10 years to find my way to express this thing. And then I realized, wait a second, Bock Saga is just starting. It was not finished with his death. It's not about his personal appearance. It was not about him. It's about Asabe Bori and the saga itself. And this is just starting. What we are doing here, it's happening on the planet now. That's my last word.
Well, thank you very much. You run the German Bock Saga Telegram, right? Yeah. Okay.
It's called Bock Saga, die Geschichte der Menschheit. And there is a tons of, I really have been collecting tons of audio tapes and videotapes on Eeyore, on the saga, the old tapes from 1989, 90. It's all there. If you don't talk German, scroll down where you find any of the tapes. It's all in English.
I'll ask Andy for the link, and I'll make sure to put it up in the description below. Thank you very much for coming on. Vielen Dank. Thomas, yeah, man, like, thank you for coming on. Thank you for streaming this to your channels as well. Like your stuff, man.
Thank you. Thanks for being a little bit of the ringleader here. Especially you and Andy are the ones that really put this together. This originally started as it was just going to be Andy coming on my show to talk about it. And then lots of people like seem to have opinions that wanted to chime in. So what better way to get as many people together and all their opinions together and hash it out instead of, like you said, like one tweet at a time or like little, Twitter fire fests. It's so much better to have like facial reactions. You can kind of see the nonverbal communication in this kind of a format. This was the best way to do it. So thank you. And if anyone wants to see what caused so many people to get upset with me, you can go to Occult Book Club. You can just search for it, occultbookclub.com, or go to Rumble, search for Occult Book Club. And we have a 5.5 hour talk on the Bock Saga where we basically read through Carl Borgen's book from page 1 all the way to the very last page. And it is truly the first time that we kind of like really digested it in full. So all the reactions are completely off the cuff. It wasn't like we sat down and wrote jokes. Like this was just our immediate reactions reading this for the very first time. So if anyone wants to see like a true reaction video to the Bock Saga, check out the Occult Book Club Bock Saga. And you can find me at paranoidamerican.com for all my other stuff.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for for coming on. You came with great questions, and like questions that definitely needed to be asked. So, Drew, again, thank you too for coming on. You also came with some very good questions. I know you have to leave as well, and since so yeah, plug your stuff, man. Any final words, perhaps?
Yeah, thanks for letting the token Christian come on and ask some questions. I've been picking away at Bock Saga, trying to understand it for quite a while now, so I appreciate the opportunity to ask some questions to people who have been researching it for a lot longer than I have. That's for sure. Yeah, I look forward to digging into the historical and language-based stuff in the future, possibly. Thank you.
You're very welcome, of course. Let's see, Mr. Rob Renegade. You've been quiet, but you definitely came with some good things. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on. Any last words? Yeah,
I've got a million more things to say. I've got a million more questions for Michelle, but we'll have to save that for another one. If we're all up for doing another one, I definitely am.
Slowly. Nothing made in 7 days.
I haven't really got anything to plug. I've written some articles which were published on a magazine, which isn't actually the website's not functioning at the moment, but I've actually sent them over to Michelle, who's going to check them for me. So I'm going to republish them after they've been checked.
Very good.
Awesome.
And I've also been doing this drawing. I don't know whether you'll be able to see any of it. Let me have a look.
Yeah, you've been doodling and drawing. Oh yeah, you pointed to that at a certain.
It probably
Can you
doesn't
make
look
that
very
full
good
screen?
through the webcam.
Yeah, difficult.
You me?
A lot of interesting symbolism.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. Next time.
All right. Thor, Mr.
I've tried to link all the key concepts of the logic in one system and show how they all join to each other. I've tried anyway.
It sounds like a hell of a task, man. Sounds like a hell of a job.
Yeah, it took me a while. It's not finished by any stretch.
Well, I mean, keep on working at it, and maybe someday it'll be finished, and maybe some other day people will actually understand it. All right, Thor, Mr. Librarian.
What's happening? Yo, thanks for having me on. That was fun. Got to chime in a couple times, and great to be here with Michelle and Ananto for the first time, face to face. Appreciate y'all. What's up, Rob? Looking forward to zooming in on that background at some point. And Thomas, I did listen to the whole video, and man, I'm impressed. For someone that's unsuccessful, you have so many dick jokes in your brain. So shouts out to your brain. And of course, Stein, appreciate you. Always down to be on a Roundtable. So yeah, you can check me out on Instagram at the Librarian. I like books and all types of information and Bockonauts. So check me out. Peace.
All right, it's been good, man. Last but not least, the storyteller himself, the one who did, I want to say like 90% of all talking. Michelle, thank you very much for coming on.
That seems to be my karma, I can't do nothing for it. No, anyway, I liked it from the beginning, this story. So, I mean, it's like I said, it's been 40 years since we started this show. And we were, of course, all desperately trying to come to a result already 1987. But through the years, we learned, that this is not about what I want or you want. This is about what is good for all of us. And there you come into the acceptance. And I could never imagine that Eeyore would be away without to see the opening of that story that he presented. So for me, that was kind of a disappointment. But over the years, I've seen quite a few friends falling away who have been like Eeyore support system in heavy times, but we have been enjoying it because basically we had a very good time, even if we sometimes suffered like dogs because we wanted with our heads to go through the wall, you know. And once you realize that, hey, let it go, you know, you are not the organizer, or you are not the how you call that, the guy who runs the people making the music, you know, the dirigent.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
You are not the master of the happening. The sunshine is the happening, is the master of the happening, and I leave it to sunshine, you know. And it will happen when it happens. And I think that we get pretty close. And not everybody have to know everything about Bock Saga in order that something can happen, you know. We don't. We need only. Yeah, it's the time that will show that we are close, and I think we are quite close to come to one result. But then again, I thought that also 35 years ago. So you never know. Nothing made in 7 days. And nice people I meet here, you know, thank you very much. Eeyore, he likes difficult people. And I think all of us represent a bit of difficulty with the way we are, or we make difficulty for other people. And he liked that, you know, because those are the people who create the ambience and the inspiration and the discussion and the confrontation. And all of that is part of Bock Saga, you know. But I know that about us, so much shit has been told, you know, and about Eeyore, he has been getting, of course, truckloads of it. But I happen to be that person who know him from before the story, and I have seen what became of him within the story. And that makes that, no, yeah, you know what happened. Whatever other people say, I know what happened. So, which is also a nice position in one way. It's also a gift. And I'm very grateful for it, and I can only share it with other people. That's the only thing I can do. You know, for the rest, I have nothing to do either. So, full
Well,
power.
we are all very thankful that you're
yes.
sharing it, and that you have shared so much with us tonight. It's been truly amazing to hear everything you have to say, to pick your brain. The big
Problem. No problem. I had to listen a lot, so then you can tell also quite a lot. So no worries.
Michelle, do you have social media or a way for someone to follow you or contact you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. No, I'm not really. Yeah, I am there, but there we have a site. No, we have that is like a. I should have to make a little explanation. I am easy to follow actually because I'm on Facebook and I'm on Telegram. I'm on all three channels. On the German one from Ananto, on the Finnish one from some guys running that in Finland, and on the English one. And for the rest, I have an email address, and I have a postal code, and I have everything.
Can you give us your social security and your bank account too?
And the last 3 digits of your credit card.
Also that is there. No, but it's not on the internet. You know, I don't trust myself with the internet, so I'm doing everything the old-fashioned way. You know, because half the time on the net, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm from Stone Age time. You know, I'm not from this modern.
Yep. From before Paradise time, yeah. To keep it topical. Yeah, no, but it's been amazing. Thank you to everyone who came on the round table. Thank you for all the knowledge and all the stories that have been shared. I know there was a bit of a mix up with all the time zones at first, because I believe like there were 4 different time zones on one podcasts, like quite literally from all over the globe. Well, aside from Asia, maybe next time. But yeah, it's been amazing, and I for sure can't wait to do this again. It's one of the easier roundtables that I have done so far. I don't have to do a lot of admin stuff. Just listen and make sure it doesn't get too dirty. Not sure if I did a good job with that. There was definitely some talk that'll get me flagged, but whatever. It's been. I mean, Thomas, you warned me for that. So, but anyway, yeah. Thank you all who came into the live chat. It's been really lively. And if you want to know more about what we do with the Greyhorn Pagans, you can go to our website, www.greyhornpagans.com. You can find everything there, not just from me, but also Josh J.Ash Odinson, who joined us earlier, and many more of our members. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, you're not subscribed yet, you haven't liked or commented yet, please do so. That really helps. Everyone who's watching on Thomas's channel, you're of course more than welcome to subscribe to my channel as well.
Please do. He's the one that made this happen, so follow him.
Thanks for the plug.
Can we do? Where can I get this video? Can I download it or?
Yeah, you should be able to download it from YouTube, or otherwise, if you have a email address, I can send the file over to you if you would like. That goes for everyone, by the way. Here, if you want to upload the file onto your own platforms, just let me know. It should download for you automatically. If it doesn't, let me know. I'll send you the file that I have.
Wait! I put my my address on Telegram in here. Then you send it to there.
Yeah. Richtig.
And then I'm gonna put it in my channel in the next days.
It will probably end up on the English channel, no, of Bock Saga and Telegram.
I mean, I'm all for spreading it far and wide. So I think English, German, Finnish, everyone else's channel that they have, like this is so.
I think this could give some good background to some of Dustin's productions. No? Like Dustin is also in full production program there, and
yeah. Oh, Dustin's been great. Dustin has been the one who came on first to talk about Bock Saga. I've done three parts with him on Bock Saga on my channel, YouTube.
Yeah, I see them all time. So nice.
So yeah, again, thank you all. Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Cheers, and until next time, everyone.
Full power.
Great.
See you later, guys.